Dear attendees, welcome to the first annual regional conference of the Regional Challenge Fund in Western Balkans 6. In order to have a smooth experience, here are a few guidelines. The official language of the conference is English, and the translation is available. Activate translation to the right on your screen by clicking Select and choosing one of the project languages: Albanian, Macedonian, Serbian, Bosnian, or Montenegrin, and click Connect. Upon activating the translation, you will hear 50% original sound, speakers, and 50% translation, the translator. You may reduce the original sound on the volume bar. If you have problems hearing the speakers, translation, or have any questions about navigating the platform, you can reach the technical support by clicking the lobby option on the menu and clicking Tech Support to open the live chat. Thank you and enjoy the conference.
Respected members of the project team, dear partners, dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Managing Board of Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum and Regional Challenge Fund, I would like to express my gratitude for your presence at the first annual regional conference in Western Balkans 6. The Regional Challenge Fund is a financing facility designed to increase youth employability. It is an initiative undertaken by German Development Bank, KfW, and financed by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. The main implementation partner is the Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum, whose operations are supported by consultants from the fund management unit. The decision for CIF to coordinate the Regional Challenge Fund was made after a comprehensive review of the economic circumstances by our partners in cooperation with the German Development Bank, KfW. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude for the trust you have placed in us after careful consideration and assessment of the capacities and capabilities of the CIF itself. Allow me to take this opportunity to remind you that the Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum is a joint initiative of the national chambers of Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Montenegro, by which economic platform aim to promote of the regional as a region of the single investment and business destination was established in 2017. The initiative represents 350,000 companies, mostly small and medium-sized enterprises, realizing a mission of opening up new opportunities for stronger networking of business communities. Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum actually represent the response of the business community to political and economic processes in the region. From the preparations for this project so far, it has become clear that WB6 business community provides strong support to the free movement of goods and services throughout the region in order to reduce costs and enable our economies to be more competitive on the global market. However, this is not enough to succeed in this demanding business. This was the reason for the establishment of the Regional Challenge Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to also moderate the opening of the first annual regional conference of the Regional Challenge Fund. As mentioned, the funds have been allocated by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. We are honored to have with us here today Mr. Santiago Alonso Rodriguez, who is a head of division for Southeastern and Eastern Europe and South Caucasus at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. I suggest we listen to Mr. Alonso and especially some good news he has for us regarding the volume of the funds for the Regional Challenge Fund.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, dear colleagues and friends. It's really a pleasure for me to give you a warm welcome to the first regional conference of the Regional Challenge Fund, bringing together all the different stakeholders of this important initiative of the region for the region. I think it's worth it to have this workshop, to have this meeting, to jointly discuss the insights of the first call of the program, the lessons learned, and how to discuss jointly how we can even work more closely together in the future. So thank you to everybody who helped to organize this meeting. As you know, Germany is a strong supporter of the EU perspective for the Western Balkans. And we are very much interested in contributing to the political stability and economic wealth of the region as the biggest bilateral donor in this region, because we are very close partners, we have very close neighbors. For us, the Western Balkans are not on the edge of Europe, but right in the center, in the heart of Europe. And so I can assure you that this region will remain very high on the agenda of the new government, the new German government, and the new German Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development, Svenja Schulze, who was already minister in the old German government as Minister for Environment, so very experienced on the international level. But the Western Balkans are not only very high on the political agenda here in Germany, in the EU, but also a very important issue on the international level. I would like to refer to the recent meeting of the G7 Foreign and Development Ministers held this last week, and in London you certainly heard of that event and the results of that meeting. I would like to quote the joint declaration where the G7 are reaffirming the shared commitment to the security of the economic recovery, to the EU perspective of the Web6 countries as crucial investment in peace and stability of the region. And there is also a very clear message of the G7 with regard to Bosnia and Herzegovina. I would like to mention here very open and frankly, where the G7 firmly reject any attempt to undermine the territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I must admit that also the German government is very concerned about the recent announcements there. We are monitoring, observing the situation very closely, and we do hope that we will be in a position to continue with our bilateral economic cooperation with Bosnia and Herzegovina also in the future. So very important messages also with regard to the economy in the region, calling for an economic recovery, calling on more progress with regard to a common regional market. And if we are talking about economy and economic development, I think we do all agree that vocational training and education is a key issue for creating the necessary environment for more economic growth. So if we are talking about the Regional Challenge Fund, we are talking about regional integration, we are talking about creating the framework conditions for more economic growth, we are talking about really fighting in a significant and effective way the unemployment and the underemployment of the young people in the region. We are talking about creating really sustainable and fair opportunities so that the young people can take their future into their own hands. And a special focus of the Regional Challenge Fund is, of course, also to especially address the young women. And I think that will be certainly an important issue of your meeting, of your discussions today. So the Regional Challenge Fund is for the German Development Corporation really a lighthouse program. We already succeeded in the first months of the implementation of this program in bringing together the private sector, the educational systems, and the public sector in a very innovative and dynamic way. And that's really already a big asset of this initiative, because that is what we need and what we are looking for the benefit of all stakeholders. So we are proud that we are part of your initiative and your efforts, and that we can contribute financially to the implementation of the program. And I'm really glad to announce, and I think that's a good news, that we were in a position to mobilize, in addition, 13.5 million euros donation, so that our financial contribution is up to 33.5 million euros for the program. I think this is a significant amount, a very important contribution, but again, the financial resources are not the most important resource. Hello, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alonso. Thank you very much. Of course, the financial part is not the most important. However, I'm sure that the news about additional funds will be very welcomed by our participants today, among whom we have many applicant consortia of vocational educational institutes and enterprises. The Regional Challenge Fund would not be possible without the German Development Bank, KfW. KfW has initiated the Regional Challenge Fund project and strongly supports its implementation from the very beginning. I'm thrilled to present Mr. Klaus Martin Müller, who is the director for the Southeastern Europe and Turkey at the KfW Development Bank. So please, Mr. Müller, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning to all of you. It's really a big pleasure to attend this first regional conference of the Regional Challenge Fund. It's Christmas time, so we just heard the very good news from my colleague, the head of the region at BMZ, Mr. Alonso, that indeed Germany will increase the funding for the Regional Challenge Funds. I think that's just excellent news in time, and I think additional motivation to all of us. Certainly also it's very special welcome to, let's say, the institution behind the Regional Challenge Funds, the Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum, Mr. Kadesh, the president, the members of the board, and certainly the whole team. And also a very warm welcome to all our cooperation partners in the region. And a very special welcome certainly to the participants of the first call. I am impressed also by the echo to the conference. I think we are talking about 600 participants from all over the regions, and I can also tell you that since the establishment of the fund, I have been following this success story, this lighthouse project, with very great interest. I'm coming from a country, Germany, where I believe that a lot of the economic success and the innovation is based on a vocational training system that is closely linked to the private sector, and where the private sector is strongly involved. And so also for KfW, as the German Development Bank, vocational training is and has been playing a crucial role in our portfolio worldwide. We have been active in this area for almost 25 years, and especially over the last 2 years, the portfolio has been growing tremendously to about 1.6 billion worldwide. In the Western Balkan region, we are relatively new in this area, vocational training. Certainly we work in a lot of other areas, but you can be sure that motivated by the great success of the Regional Challenge Fund, we are planning also to expand our engagement in the vocational training area, and hope that both our experience from Germany and our worldwide experience will be helpful in our cooperation. Very often, even in Germany, we see that a great challenge is the mismatch between labor market supply and labor market demand. And certainly vocational trainees should be trained those skills that are needed by the companies, so that employability of the graduates from vocational training schools are ensured. But very often we have been seeing that it's not so easy to incentivize, to motivate also the private sector to get actively engaged in the vocational training area. And that's why also KfW over the past years have been giving a lot of thought on how to develop concepts, approaches that exactly help to stimulate more private sector engagement. And that's why we are so extremely happy that now with the Regional Challenge Fund, we have an example where I think very successfully we were able to motivate the private sector to get engaged in vocational training and to team up with the vocational schools in submitting proposals. And I think the results we have seen in the first call for proposal is tremendous. It's going far beyond the expectations we had. I think we are talking about 36 proposals that we have been receiving. That's why it's also good news that we will have increased funding to also be able to approve many of the very good proposals that have been received. I mean, the key of the Regional Challenge Fund that it's a demand-driven approach. So schools and companies can develop cooperative training projects catered to their needs, to the needs in the labor market. And we see it from all the proposals that were submitted that exactly that happened, that the proposals were developed from the perspective of the skills needed by the companies. I think what also helps very much in the approach is that it's a competitive call for proposal. So it's really, you stimulate a competition of good ideas, giving us, I think, also a lot of ideas for, in more broader terms, to develop the vocational training sector in the various countries. But I think the Regional Challenge Fund has one additional very special feature, and that is that it can very swiftly react to the changing demands in the labor markets. I think we see in the last few years tremendous development in the area of climate change, regional value change. Certainly also the pandemic was asking for new skills, specific skills. And I think the Regional Challenge Fund with its modality of call for proposals is in an excellent position to respond to such changing demands from the labor market, also by incorporating selection criteria in the call for proposals that respond to these trends. I think a very special feature is certainly also the regional networking. We know that from the European Union how important it is to have both joint standards in the labor markets in training, but also to ensure labor mobility. I'm from a generation where, when I was young, studying in another European country or working in another European country was still a big obstacle. I think we are all very happy in the EU and beyond the EU that it was able to increase the mobility tremendously, and we are really talking about regional and global labor markets. I certainly do not want to end my introductory remarks without expressing a very big thank you. Certainly, first of all, to the Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum. It's really a tremendous work that has been done, and I think the success must be a big reward for the institution. Certainly also a big thank you to the fund management unit. I know from other funds how difficult it is to set up the mechanism to organize such a call for proposal. So a big thank you, and then certainly also a very big thank you to all those that participated in the first call of the Regional Challenge Fund. And we are really happy that we can reward many of these proposals. And then certainly lastly, also a big thank you to the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, that also had the courage to support and provide funding for such an innovative project and is guiding us also politically in this process. So I wish us all a successful conference today and certainly a lot of further success to this exciting Lighthouse project. Thank you.
We thank Mr. Müller for these kind words, and I use this opportunity to also thank his colleagues from Frankfurt, especially to Ms. Victoria Wilde for her support, as well as his colleagues from the national KfW offices in Western Balkan 6 economies for their support. Now we move toward the Western Balkan. We will hear now from my dear colleague, Mr. Vesovic, who will address us on behalf of the Managing Board of the Western Balkan 6 Chamber Investment Forum. Mihailo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Balša. Dear partners, representatives of the KfW, German government, our partners from the region, chambers, this is really good opportunity to address you and to say, first of all, thanks for the support that Chamber Investment Forum is receiving in the last few years. Especially, I think that this project is basically the star project of the Chamber Investment Forum, and I must say that 350,000 companies, mostly small and medium-sized enterprises represented by the West Balkan 6 chambers, is basically the huge and important and most important force for going through all the crises and all the problems in an economic sense that we were facing. And we must be really true to ourselves that one of the biggest problems is the connection between businesses and educational system. And I think that this project, through its activities, really answers a lot of open questions and open problems that our businesses are facing when we are coming to the question of the labor market. Although we have a good information in the sense that the economy overall in the Western Balkan 6 countries is rising in the last year more than 5% average. This is a good thing. Unemployment is on a level that is not something that is at this point of time worst economic crisis that we've seen. It's really stable, but the quality of the labor force and the way that the educational system and businesses work together, something that this project really supported directly. And I think that it's one of the examples how the questions and problems that business community has in the region can be answered jointly with institutions such as fund that we build it together. And I think that it's the reaction of the companies, reaction of the educational system was overwhelmingly positive in the last year. At least numbers can prove that in this moment. And I think that reaching to the companies that are looking for the potential candidates going to work there and not investing in them, but getting the employers that already are aware of the technologies. And I must say that the globalization and the changes in technologies in the last 10 to 20 years, and especially demographic trends, prove that we have to work especially on the special skills of the future workers, not in the just vocational training that is introduced in our local economies and local legal system, but we should build on this what governments and companies and educational system already achieved. I think that this annual conference is the perfect moment to see what has been done right. Were there any problems? What are the experiences? Let's learn from what we've done in the last year. Let's exchange those information and build on that. It's nice to have a good news that this project will basically rise in the next year. And I would congratulate everybody who is engaged in this project. And I think that it's one of the cornerstones of changing the scenery and economic scene. And I should also mention that it's great that Regional Challenge Fund recognized the additional aspects of the cut across economy sectors with the green transition, the regional integration, the digitalization, and the changing of the supply chains that we've seen in the last 2 years are also very important issues that we could answer through the better educational system, better cooperation with companies and the needs for companies from the educational system. And I hope that we're going to see each other on the next year's annual conference and have the same positive effect and probably work something else. Additionally, I would congratulate everybody that is involved and thank to everybody who is supporting the Regional Challenge Fund. And we should have this as one of the pillars of the good cooperation with the regional institution and the European institutions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vesovic. Thank you for reminding us about the importance of the Regional Challenge Fund for the Western Balkan region. I'm sure that the most of you are already familiar with my colleagues, consultants from the Fund Management Unit led by Mr. Frieder Werman. The Fund Management Unit team supported the organization of this conference and they will guide you throughout the remaining sessions. I will now hand over the moderator's microphone to my colleague, Ms. Jelena Manić-Radojičić. Jelena, please take the floor.
Thank you, Balša, for this introduction. I'm very happy to continue with our conference program. We are now moving toward the session with keynote speeches, and this session will give us some interesting insights about recent trends and challenges on human capital development in Western Balkans 6 as one of the main focus of the Regional Challenge Fund initiative. Council of Europe Development Bank published recently a research in November 2021, so only a month ago. Research was titled Social Infrastructure in the Western Balkans, Increasing the Region's Economic Resilience, Enhancing Human Capital, and Counteracting the Effects of Brain Drain. And this comprehensive research provides numerous insights, among others, those related to the intersection between economy and education, especially education infrastructure. And we are happy to have here with us today one of the research authors, Mr. Edo Omić, who is the economist from the European Affairs and Studies Division at the Council of Europe Development Bank. Mr. Omić, we kindly invite you to share your thoughts and findings from this interesting research with us.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jelena, and to KfW and to the Regional Challenge Fund. What a privilege and what an honor to be here today and to speak to all of you. What a great initiative as well, I think, in trying to create better economic conditions in the region. As Jelena already touching upon some of the key findings of what we published about a month ago, which was really trying to analyze this intersection with human capital and the region's economic resilience and future economic development goals. To start off with, I think it's important to recognize that actually the region has had quite a lot of success over the last 20 years. I think often we tend to speak in very negative ways about the region, but actually a lot has been done in a very positive way. We've seen economic convergence levels grow in a very healthy way. Yes, they've slowed down a little bit in the last 10 years, but they're still well above EU levels. But yes, we do still have some issues that we need to try to fix and try to overcome in the coming years. Everything from absolute levels of income still being much lower than the EU levels. We still have issues of unemployment and employment levels, especially of young people, and the challenges that countries have in transitioning from their current economic structures to more knowledge-based and digital-oriented economic areas. Now, in order to do this, how do we sustain and achieve more durable long-term economic growth? Well, one area is to create a much stronger human capital base, and that's really a cornerstone of our report that we published. Really, the basic element here is a citizenry that is well educated, that has good healthcare and good living conditions, can create the necessary foundations within societies to allow them to socially progress, but also to economically progress. And to achieve better human capital, you really need a stronger social infrastructure components. You need strong education, healthcare, and housing systems, which complement and directly affect the health of the human capital within a country. Yet, unfortunately, over the last several years and really decades, the focus in terms of policy and investment tension in the social infrastructure has been somewhat less pronounced as we would like to see. And as a result, this has maybe created a missed opportunity in which, quite frankly, helping develop the human capital could have been a very strong complement to catalyze some of the other investments and in hard infrastructure areas in the transformation of some of the economic sectors, because having a skilled workforce is actually really a cornerstone to having a stronger economic potential within the region. And we know that because this allows to increase labor productivity within countries, allows the establishment of more knowledge-based economies by creating more innovative capacity within the country, more knowledge absorption capacity as well of ideas that are generated both at home and abroad, and to increase the returns on the investments in technology and capital. There is a third element of why we need human capital development stronger in the region, and that is to counteract the effects of brain drain. We are seeing a endemic outflow of both high-skilled as well as medium-skilled individuals from the region, and this is actually hollowing out the human capital potential in the region. So those who do remain behind do not have all the necessary human capital skills and potential, and those who emigrate abroad take their capacities away with them, and this actually limits the competitiveness of the region in the long term. So today's intervention is going to focus on one element of our report, which is the human capital and linked to education systems, as this will be really a cornerstone of trying to create a stronger economic competitiveness in the region. What we do tend to see from our analysis is that there tends to be a high concentration of labor in those sectors that have a high risk of automation or digitalization. So if you look at this graph, for instance, on the vertical axis, you have the share of employment in the Western Balkan 6 countries in different sectors, with the horizontal axis showing the mean automation risk. Essentially, what this means is that the higher the value you are on this horizontal axis, the more likely a skill or a competency within a job can be automated or digitized. And what we see is that there's a high concentration in sectors that potentially have a lower value added growth potential, such as retail or agriculture or construction, and tend to have a lower productivity growth potential as well. We also see a huge macroeconomic skills mismatch in the region. And just to simplify this graph, a higher value on this graph essentially means that a country has far too many low-skilled individuals and not enough jobs for them, while often it also means that there is not enough medium and high-skilled individuals relative to the amount of jobs that are being demanded for them. So there just simply isn't enough people. And this is going to really be a cornerstone of why we need to upgrade the current skill set of people within the region. When we look at the education systems, what we tend to see is a continuous underinvestment in public expenditure on our compulsory education systems in the region, from pre-primary to the end of secondary education. And this often translates into much lower level of spending, which create material shortages within schools, have issues of shortages of skilled staff, digital tools, a host of other infrastructure components that, quite frankly, make the school systems quite outdated. What this graph shows, for instance, very quickly is on the vertical axis, the PISA reading score from the OECD relative to the percentage of students whose learning outcomes are hindered by a lack of materials in their school. And what this graph shows is the composition by different schools that serve different types of socioeconomic backgrounds. So if you, for instance, show the schools that are for the lowest 25 percentile, they really have an issue of lack of materials, and this is correlated with lower scores. And you can see this when you go up to the top 25% or the second 25%, the third 25%, and the top 25%. The blue dots, by the way, are the European Union levels. As a result, what we see is some of the lowest scores in Europe on the OECD PISA score system. In the region. As you can see, this creates long-term impacts on human capital and labor market conditions, because those who are currently in the labor force are the byproduct of this education system, and they're simply not economically and skills competitive relative to the EU counterparts. And the future generations, the ones who are currently in the education system, will also fail to be as competitive as their European counterparts. When we look at vocational education, which is really another really quite important component, we often see that there is high levels of long-term unemployment. About 64% of people who are unemployed have been unemployed for more than 12 months. This is very high by EU standards as well. Often this creates a system of individuals being highly discouraged in their work, high labor underutilization rates, so labor is not being fully utilized. This is about 24% in the Western Balkans, compared to an average of about 12% in the EU and just 8% in Germany. When people are out of labor for such a long time and not able to obtain new skills, this creates really damaging effects for the individuals. Their skills begin to deteriorate over time as they're no longer in the workforce. You have issues of motivation to actually go back into the labor force, which means that you're missing opportunity to utilize the competencies of these individuals, and this minimizes economic returns. And importantly, it also really has a negative effects on the well-being of those individuals. Those people tend to have higher instances of mental health issues, depression, anxieties, and even can relate to health issues as well. So this is really a social cost as well, and you don't want to have individuals who are highly discouraged and feel as if they are not part of society as well. And in order to get those people into the labor force, we need to try to address this skills mismatch, which is quite prevalent in the region. As we've already shown in the labor underutilization rate, it's very high. But even just 9 years ago, there was an analysis done where it showed that businesses, about 34 to 40% of businesses, felt that skills were a main obstacle to their development in the private sector. So this was something that was happening 9 years ago. It's still a prevalent issue that we've seen as well. There's simply not enough qualified or trained individuals. And this constrains economic competitiveness in the region. Private sector is unable to compete and innovate relative to other countries and other private sectors in those countries. And to attract investment as well, it's much more difficult when you don't have a skilled workforce. One element that we need to do is, of course, focus on more education in adults, vocational education, lifelong learning. As this graph shows, for instance, the horizontal axis shows the participation rate in vocational education in the last 12 months relative to the underutilization rate of labor. As you can see in the Western Balkans, that utilization is very high and the participation in VT is very low. And often the reason we tend to see problems of VT in the region is that simply there hasn't been enough policy investment attention placed on them. Often VT systems are underfunded. They have lack of materials, staff, similar to the compulsory education system. The curriculum are often outdated. They don't link to the private sector as effectively as they can. And this needs real policy attention and more investment in the long term. At the same time, this investment will go a long way because uptake of vocational education is very low in the region. Often people cite that it's too expensive, or they simply can't find information about its availability. One thing that we saw was that there was very low uptake of even free IT vocational education in some Western Balkan countries, simply because there wasn't enough information about it. So this is an area that really needs to be focused on in the coming years. Since I'm running out of time, I just really wanted to quickly go over one of the latest Council of Europe Development Bank's projects, which is attempting to focus on training and vocational elements in the region. And an example in Serbia, where we just approved, just actually last month, a 20 million euro loan to help upgrade the Aviation Academy College of Applied Sciences, which will create 2 aviation centers and training centers in Vršac and Belgrade in Serbia. And this will be trying to upgrade the current systems to have the latest technologies, the latest curriculum elements as well, to ensure that they are most compliant with European standards. And this will not just be to train new pilots, but also to give people skills in air traffic control, maintenance of infrastructure as well, and also planes, which then, of course, those skills can be reapplied and retooled for other industries later on in people's careers if they choose to leave. And one element that we wanted to do was to ensure that the training was focused on lower income individuals. So this was giving a lot of incentives to try to get individuals from low income backgrounds into these schools, to give them opportunities to obtain new skills and retrain new skills so they can re-enter into a sector that actually has quite a lot of economic growth potential in the near future. So I hope that intervention, brief as it was, gave you a quick overview of the current macroeconomic and skills situation in the region. And of course, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask me through email. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Omic. It was really great hearing about findings like, I mean, it's not great to hear about it, about a skills mismatch and underinvestment, but it's great to see that we are aligned with our goals of the Regional Challenge Fund, focusing on investment in infrastructure, of vocational training institutes, and cooperating with businesses. And what also strikes me as a maybe takeaway message, a low uptake of the VET in the region. And this is something that we really think that can be improved with a better environment in the vocational education and training facilities, that certainly investments that you mentioned from COB and investments that we are talking about from the side of the Regional Challenge Fund hopefully can change this landscape and improve it for the better of further employability of young people and their motivation to stay around the region. Thank you so much. Once again, I shared the link of the research in the chat. There was some interested participants asking about the presentation. So yeah, I'm sure we can make it available after the conference as well. Thank you once again to Mr. Omic. And today within the opening statements, we heard how important is regional cooperation and integration. And one of the key actors in this field is, of course, Regional Cooperation Council. In the past years, the notable progress has been made with implementing a common regional market and multi-annual action plan for the regional economic area. This sounds like a very ambitious and important initiative, and we are eager to hear more about it, especially in the context of human capital development, education, and employment. I believe we have with us Mr. Siniša Marčić, a human capital development expert from the Regional Cooperation Council. And now, Mr. Marčić, I give the floor to you.
Jelena, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes, we hear you well and see you.
I'm connecting from a hotel room where internet connection seems to be a bit unstable. So at a later stage, I will switch off my camera if you don't mind, while I share my presentation, a brief one. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you and see you very well.
Okay, so once again, thank you very much for this great opportunity to address such a large audience. It's good to hear that you have more than, well, nearly 300 participants today. That's quite an achievement in this Zoom saturated age. We are having one regional event tomorrow and day after tomorrow, and we can only dream of having 300 people. So very good on you. When you asked me about joining this conference, I was thinking how to present what the RCC has been focusing on over the last several months, in particular since November last year, when the Common Regional Market Action Plan as the key strategic document endorsed by all Western Balkans 6 governments has been put into practice. And I prepared a very long and dull presentation. So I decided to skip that one and use a slightly different approach. So this presentation is going to have only 7 slides, but later on I will touch upon the key sort of developments over the last year or so when it comes to human capital development. So if you don't mind, I will share this presentation with you right now. Do I have this privileges to share it? Sorry, but I can't see my files. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, Mr. Omic has just shared the presentation, so I assume it's open for every panelist, but if technical support can reassure us of that. And I see this green button, share screen, so that one should help you identify your file.
Okay, just a second. Yeah, I got it. Can you see this?
Yes, yeah, there's a bus,
Okay.
50 passengers.
Yeah, so it's a bit unorthodox, but this is an average coach bus. On average, it fits 50 passengers between 40, 55, 56, doesn't matter. And on average, it's about 12 meters in length. Now, why this matters? This is something to think about. I suppose none of you have any idea what this number 3,287 means. It means 387 buses full of people who have left the region in 2020. That is about 39 kilometers full line of buses packed with people. And as we could hear from Mr. Ormic, the region is rapidly losing human capital alongside depopulation and very negative demographic outlooks for the entire region. So when we look at more specific statistics, we see that nearly half of our population is unemployed, as opposed to 67% of population in the European Union that is employed. And among the youth group, we have 35% of unemployed young people, double as that in the European Union. These are quite grim statistics, and this explains partly why so many people leave the region. Just to illustrate, between 1990 and 2016, 4.4 million people have fled the Western Balkans. When we add the latest statistics within the last 4 years, that amounts to 5 million and above people who have left the region. Many of these people are highly educated, skilled individuals, which means that our labor market and our social services will be under enormous strain in the future. Unless we do something, this line, unfortunately, is going to get much, much longer. According to some trends, we expect to see between 180,000 and 200,000 people leaving the Western Balkans by the end of this year. We will have these statistics next year, and the only reason why we experienced a dip in the number of people who have left the region is mainly because of the COVID restrictions. In 2019, we've seen 190,000 people, 196 in 2018, and so on and so on. So what is to be done? That's the key question. What can we do to ensure that people around the region actually stay around the region and contribute to economic development in the future? Last year in November, Western Balkan leaders gathered in Sofia to endorse the Common Regional Market Action Plan. Basically, that's the key strategic document supported by all Western Balkan governments and created in close collaboration with European Commission and other partners. It is based on 4 freedoms. So in a way, it mimics the European Union's 4 freedoms, freedoms of goods, services, and capital and people. Now, when we dissect this document, it consists of several pillars. One of them has to do with innovation, the area that I cover and that I can speak mostly about, closely linked for the first time with industrial, regional industrial area and development, digital transformation. And sorry, there's a hitch here. It should have been education, so digital and education. And as a separate process, we have the green agenda for the Western Balkans, another major strategic document endorsed 2 months ago in Brdo pri Kranju in Slovenia during the EU Western Balkans summit organized during the Slovenian presidency of the Council of the European Union. Now, what have we done and how we can get things moving from this moment onwards? Let me just walk you through some of the actions that we've been focusing on this year. When it comes to innovation, innovation directly falls under human capital development within the Common Regional Market Action Plan alongside education. We have been focusing on really attracting various types of groups that have been marginalized over the last decades to tap into their potential. One of those groups is obviously has to do with women. We've created a network of women in STEM in April this year, and the idea here is really to encourage as many young women and girls to either enroll a higher education in STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But we also introduced a new initiative, first of that sort in the Western Balkans, the Regional Diaspora Knowledge Transfer Initiative. The idea, obviously, is to tap into this enormous potential of our clever and educated people who have left the region over the last several years. And let me just stop sharing this to make things easier for you. Over the last year or so, we've launched this initiative, and we plan to have the first regional forum on diaspora. The idea here is very simple. We want to get in touch with our diaspora and figure out what's the best way to approach them and how we can benefit from their knowledge. Knowledge seen as a very broad term, both as something that can be transferred directly back to their home communities, or through investments, scientific and research work, innovation, etc., etc. When it comes to education, we have been working over the last year also on developing very sort of important documents that will allow mobility of professionals and academics around the region. The first agreement on recognition of higher education qualifications is technically prepared, and its goal is to establish a common standard and procedures on that will shorten period for recognition to 14 days, and also to remove barriers for students. This links directly to what Mr. Omic has been saying in his introductory speech as well. The second has to do with agreement on recognition of professional qualifications for doctors of medicine, dentists, and architects. Again, it's based on EU acquis and EU good practices. And the idea here is to accelerate reforms in the education sector by aligning minimum training standards within the Western Balkans and also with the European Union counterparts. These two agreements I hope to have a fully transformative role in the region. And within a 5-year horizon, we hope to have automatic recognition of qualifications with completely removed barriers for students, academics, and professionals in the Western Balkans. When it comes to digital transformation, many things have been going on this year. But one that is very important for the topic of this conference has to do with digital skills. Namely, apart from introducing roaming like at home and removing roaming charges within the Western Balkans, and we hope to have a roadmap for lowering roaming charges with the European Union as well. We also organized the 4 Digital Summit to discuss the best ways forward in terms of digital transformation. But the one thing that really is particularly important is digital skills. Namely, we are aiming to identify needs and gaps in the Western Balkans and assess what needs to be done when it comes to digital transformation and reskilling, upskilling, in particular young people in the Western Balkans in the near future. as we could hear earlier on, we have a number of uneducated and poorly educated individuals, which introduces enormous strain to the labor market as well. As one of our side projects, we have ESSA project, which deals basically with employment and social policies. And the key sort of message I can get across is that we need to strengthen efforts to adjust and adapt existing and design new policies to effectively address negative effects of the COVID-19, and also leverage digital transition and the move towards the greener economy. When it comes to green economy, as I mentioned, the political declaration on green agenda for the Western Balkans has been endorsed 2 months ago. It's a very comprehensive document. It includes 7 fields, and an action plan has been prepared just recently that will identify the milestones to be achieved by 2030. Basically, the idea here is to mimic what the European Union has been doing in recent last couple of years with the Green Deal for the European Union, and ensure that the entire region transitions to zero emissions by 2050. By 2030, a number of very important milestones are to be achieved, some politically very sensitive, so it's going to take a lot of political wisdom to reach this point. But on the other hand, this opens enormous opportunities, and having in mind the European Commission as through its Western Balkans investment plan, has allocated a number of various opportunities and quite a lot of money. We're talking several billions of euros. Sorry. We believe this is a great opportunity for the Western Balkans to develop in the forthcoming years. With the projects such as this one you run, I believe this is going to become fully possible. So once again, thank you very much for having me, and sorry for being slightly longer than expected.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. And I know that you're very busy traveling. Last time when we met at a conference, you were outside on the road, but this time at a hotel. So I see that you have a tight schedule, and thank you for finding time for us. And it was really important for us to hear encouraging initiatives and encouraging results in alleviating the challenges you mentioned regarding the brain drain. It was really a powerful metaphor. And the inclusion of female in VET is something that we are also very devoted to. And we are very happy to hear that recognition of qualification is going to be shorter than expected for this regional labor market mobility and regional labor force mobility. And of course, thank you for mentioning the importance of green digital in terms of education for further regional cooperation. These are the topics that we will go really elaborate further in our panel sessions. But before we do that, and before we dig deeper into green, digital, and regional, we have one very important presentation to hear, and this time it concerns Regional Challenger Fund as a facility. And we mentioned already that it's a facility designed to increase youth employability by finding investments in equipment and infrastructure for selected dual and cooperative education projects. And we encourage partnership between vocational training institutes and enterprises. We are very proud of the success of the first call, but what are the lessons learned from the previous call, and what are the maybe some next steps? We will hear from Mr. Frieder Werman, who is a team leader of the fund management unit of the Regional Challenge Fund. Frieder, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jelena. And as well, good morning to all the participants and all the panelists. Really, impressive the number of those that joined us today. So we take this as a good, good sign of being well received in the region. I'm aware that it's basically a coffee break time, and people would like to probably go to the exhibit hall. I will try to wrap it up a bit and guide you through a couple of slides, indicating where we are standing as the Regional Challenge Fund with the first call, and as well what we have observed, what we have seen, certain lessons learned. I mean, we're still in the implementation of projects, that is going to come, and then a certain outlook with regard to the topics Jelena mentioned already. I will just start the presentation here. So yeah, I think I can briefly go over these more generic questions of where the starting points. I think has been explained in detail by Ilda and Sinesha as well. The situation the region is in, yeah, the link between a lack of demand-driven VET, the difficulties for companies to find qualified labor, and then as well the problems of the VET systems with regard to positioning themselves in the market as promising providers of education. So yeah, we're operating obviously in this context, as mentioned as well, Mr. Müller. That is one of the key objectives of the fund, and that are the issues we are trying to address. And at the later stage, yeah, probably not yet with the first annual conference, but at later conferences we will have a careful look at to what extent the RCF can as well fulfill that. There are a couple of structural problems, as mentioned already, which weigh relatively heavily on the provision of that in the region. I put the question mark here because what we're seeing now from the response of to the first call is that especially on the side of the SMEs, but as well on the side of the VTIs, there are at least some pockets of activity. So it is not everything is gloomy or very negative. So we're seeing also now when visiting the selected consortia that activities are being planned and that things are moving ahead. The awareness of cooperative VET education is of course something that needs to be still developed, but I think also there events and our activities workshops have contributed to that to a certain extent. I also would say that the SMEs are increasingly taking this challenge up and are getting interested in cooperating with the vocational schools in order to set up training programs, and that the cooperative training is the model that is on the rise in the region. I think the setup has been developed already by the previous speakers. So I will go to to some of the figures and the results of our first call, and from the response that we're getting from the market. This demand-driven realization of cooperative training. We can confirm that there is a demand and there are activities going on. We had 3,500 participants in our events that were tutorials and information events that were organized ahead of the first call. Then we had above 700 registrations in the RCF system. So we have a grant management which is online. So consortia could register there. Then we had 205 received expressions of interest, which was beyond our expectations, and we had quite some work to do to cope with it. And we had above 600 companies signing the MOUs that were required in order to form the consortia, which is significant. I mean, the companies really engaging, investing time in these activities. If you look at the 350,000 companies represented by the CIF, we have quite a bit of reservoir to tap into. But I think as a starting point, this is a strong sign that SMEs take this increasingly seriously. And in total, they have been putting 7,000 training places on the table, so to say. Not all of them will be financed and funded, but there is a certain potential and capacity to implement trainings at a significant level. As I said, it was a very positive, well, it was a surprise, but it was a positive insight that there's such a strong demand, and that was not so clear, especially in times of the pandemic. It was not certain that the market would respond to it. There are probably a few elements apart from the need indeed to invest in invest in vocational training structures and to support the cooperative training approaches. I think the fund structure itself had a couple of positive effects on the response from the market. So we are relatively transparent. So we had a web page where all the information and the data were available. So quite easy to follow and then as well to go through. And there was as well mentioned by some of the consortia, it was the funding structure as such was very attractive, as certain neutrality was given by this, and also the fact that the evaluation and assessment were performed by external experts probably contributed to that. Then we had a relatively clear procedure for application and evaluation. It was system-based. Everything was taking place online, so quite user-friendly. And then last but not least, from early on, we had organized a structured dialogue and a coordination with the national international stakeholders, so to ensure that the RCF as well creates certain synergies or connects with already existing initiatives in this area. So all in all, I think a setup that is still going to work over a couple of years. So we're going to continue with additional calls in the future. But the setup as such has proven as quite solid and robust. A quick look at the first call, the results. That's something that has been published already. Mr. Müller and Mr. Alonso have mentioned that there's additional funding made available, which is good. We have accordingly as well increased the available funds for the first call now. The graph shows the results for the different countries in terms of number of projects being selected and proposed for financing, and as well the amounts. It is a competition, so one can also have a look at the figures here and see which countries are well represented and which others are maybe not so well represented. I have a later slide with regard to the success rates, which are quite similar in 4 countries. And 2 countries, we may look into it and try to adopt our approach in the future to maybe support this in a stronger way. So most of the projects, not surprisingly, come from Serbia. It's the biggest country, also with a relatively developed cooperative training sector, and then Macedonia, Kosovo, and Albania following closely. In that, we have a total number of projects we are going to support of 37 now. We have, this was the result of 66 shortlisted projects and 64 applications, so relatively good quality. So we really have been impressed by the proposals put together. And this is then the result now that we will be able to support these 37 projects with planned investments of 14.3 million euros. This is a bit something we will have to look into now. Not all the budgets and the investment plans will probably remain unchanged. That's part of the setup of the application procedure. So there will be technical reviews now to clarify what is a meaningful investment. And then here's a little bit of a breakdown by what has been requested. It is mostly equipment. I think that is going into the direction that also Edo and Sinisha mentioned, that equipment is needed in the schools in order to implement the training programs, but also a certain amount for infrastructure and training and advisory, that is teachers training very often, and support for setting up training courses. We have asked ourselves what kind of VTIs are represented in our sample now. So there's a quick comparison between the VTIs at the expression of interest stage and then the VTIs at the stage of being selected. Of course, the vet schools, the secondary schools take the biggest part. There's also the highest number. There's not too many surprises there. We'll have to look a bit at the vocational training centers that were represented at the VTI stage, but have not made it to the awarded projects. Something we will have to look into and see what the reasons might be, because they're valuable players in the market as well. And it's yeah, none of them has been received funding right now, so we will yeah, we'll have to analyze that a bit. Then the distribution of the projects and the expression of the interest by economic sector. Yeah, a lot of mechanical engineering, trade, hospitality, electrical engineering. This reflects, I think, largely the structure of the economies in the region. And there was also no significant change from the composition and the expression of interest stage to the awarded projects. So yeah, maybe a good health and social professions were relatively strong than in the selected projects. But that is again something we'll have to look into, and maybe as well see at a later stage whether to focus on certain sectors additionally. And then I was talking already about the success rates. That is yeah, the percentage of the selected projects compared to the expression of interest stage, the eligibility eligible projects, and as well the shortlisted ones. So relatively high rates in Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, and Serbia when it comes to the ratio to shortlisted ones. And this is probably quite different countries as such. So the systems are quite different. Probably the reasons are also different ones. While in North Macedonia and Serbia, cooperative training or dual education is relatively well developed, and hence projects were well prepared and well based already. Our impression is a bit in Albania and Kosovo. There has been a relatively strong support from the international community, which brought about as well developed project proposals, and hence these good rates when it comes to making it to the finance stage. And then, yeah, I would leave it here. There will be more analysis that we are going to do, and probably also more lessons learned with regard to the selection and application procedures. A quick look at the outlook, as Jelena said, and this brings us already then to the panel discussions later on. So, of course, the cooperative training model is the topic of the RCF. But our feeling is that in order to improve competitiveness of the students, of graduates, it will be crucial to link our activities and as well the cooperative training activities to additional aspects that matter for the region. And Sinesh has mentioned it already. Yeah, it's the greening of the economy that we're going to focus on. Then the impact or the requirements emerging from the digitization of training, but as well again the economic activities. And then the regional aspect to that, especially in the W6 region, will be quite decisive, I think, in the long run for the region as a whole. And then my outlook too is just a hint. We'll have a second call for expressions of interest. This was initially indicated now for the end of the year. With the increase of the funding available for the first call, we have decided to postpone that to the first quarter of February 2022. And we will then be online again via our social media and websites, and inform interested parties accordingly. Good. Thank you very much for the attention, Jelena. I think I stop here and hand it over back to you.
Thank you, Frieder. There were also some questions in chat about the timing of the next call. I think it's clear now, tentatively February 2022. And also, as you have heard from Mr. Alonso, Mr. Miller, and now Mr. Verman and other speakers confirmed, there are additional 13.5 million euros that will be allocated for the applicants who were successful also under the first call. So if you saw our website a couple of days ago and you saw a list of 23, and now you have seen in the presentation of Mr. Verman that the number is 37. So there will be some more consortia that we will contact in days to come with the good news about the project. Second call in February 2022. And now we will like to make a short break, 15 minutes break, and we encourage you to use this break for your refreshment, but also some of you might have noticed that we have prepared the exhibit hall where you can see more information about the Regional Challenge Fund, selection eligibility criteria, but also we have a sort of exhibition and virtual fair of our dear chambers of commerce from around the region, Chamber Investment Forum, KfW Development Bank. So if you have a spare minute or two, you can browse and maybe save some resources through your swag bag, email to yourself, or just enjoy some videos and travel around the region for a bit. So let's stop now and see you back in 15 minutes. We will have a countdown timer on the screen in case you want to measure your and be precise to come back for a panel on green wet. Thank you. Dear attendees, I hope you have enjoyed a virtual coffee break, perhaps had a time to visit the exhibit hall or just relaxed a bit. Anyway, we will have another break, another round, and another opportunity to visit our virtual platform. Now, I just want to confirm from my technical support team, is everything fine? Can we proceed?
Yep, regarding interpretation, all is good.
Okay, good. Thank you. So now we are moving toward a panel that we named Potentials for Greening Vocational Education and Training for Green Growth in Western Balkans 6. And we had quite some of introduction at the beginning. And we heard from our previous speakers, and we know from our experience and every day from living in Western Balkan, especially in Europe, that many of economically relevant sectors in Western Balkan 6 face significant ecological challenges, and they will have to transform sooner or later in the coming years if the region is to achieve the goal of becoming ecologically more sustainable. We heard that there was a Sofia Declaration in November 2020, where governments of VB6 countries agreed to work towards 2050 carbon neutrality goals in line with the EU, and to jointly work on mainstreaming a climate policy and reforming energy and transport sectors. Mr. Martic from RCC also mentioned what are the activities and some achievements in that regard from the point of regional cooperation. And hand in hand with the green growth on the side of the economy, there's a second coin which is equally important about greening vocational education and training. The ongoing transition to greener economies creates an urgent need to embed sustainability in TVET curricula, trainings, and standards. And since its first call, the RCF has promoted environmental standards following the exclusion list and sectorial guidelines of the KfW group. RCF was restraining from financing environmentally harmful activities such as prospection, exploration, and mining of coal. And moreover, we have created guidelines for environmental and social management, where we promote activities with minimal or no adverse environmental or social risks and impacts, and we ask oral applicants to commit to. But we want to further explore the topic of what can be done from the side of vocational education and training system and enterprises in order to respond to green growth agenda for the Western Balkan. And to discuss that briefly, we will have 30 minutes only. So my panelists today will have to be very precise and concise. And I think I have a very nice speakers today here. Ms. Esma Manic, she's Energy and Resource Efficiency Advisor from Enova Sarajevo. Mrs. Manic, yeah, I can see you, you're with us, thank you. And Mr. Dusan Stokic, head of the Center for Environment, Technical Regulations, Quality and Social Responsibility from Chambers of Commerce and Industry in Serbia. So Mr. Stokic, yes, you are. Thank you for waving. Mrs. Tanja Radusinovic, she's head of the Sector for Projects at the Chamber of Commerce in Montenegro. Hi, Mrs. Radusinovic. Thank you for joining us. And there's also Mrs. Daniela Korac-Mandic. She's a program coordinator at Novi Sad Humanitarian Center, a civil society organization based in Novi Sad. So thank you all four of you for joining us. And I would first like to talk to Mrs. Esma Manic. And I know she's been very experienced working around the whole region, and especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also in other parts of Balkan. And I know she's been involved in many projects as a consultant. So I just wanted to check with her, what's your assessment, Mrs. Manic? Is our commercial sector and our enterprises ready for green transition? Especially when it comes to availability of the skilled employees and skilled workforce ready to support this important transition. Mrs. Manic, please, the floor is yours. And I will be very strict. After 5 minutes, no more time. So please. Mrs. Manic, we cannot hear you.
This is technical support speaking. Mrs. Manic, would you please check if you have selected the right microphone for this, or you may plug out your earphones for this session. You can check your microphone settings by clicking on. Okay. Maybe it would be better to check if you have chosen the right settings by clicking on the microphone icon in the lower left part of your screen.
Okay, and Alexandra, I will ask you to be in touch via chat with Mrs. Manic. I see she's handling. She has her phone, probably mixture between interpretation and listening to the conference. So I suggest you to go in chat, and I will address then my question to Mr. Stokic and Mrs. Radusinovic. They're both coming from chambers of commerce. So I'm sure they can both tell us what are they doing in Montenegro and in Serbia. Let's start with Montenegro first to give ladies a first go. Mrs. Radusinovic, the same question goes for you. I know Montenegro, there have been many projects related to green economy, but also blue economy, since you're lucky enough to have a C. Could you tell us more about some of the important projects related to greening your economy and especially availability of workforce? Are there enough qualified employees to support green transition?
It's my pleasure to be part of this conference. I want to stress that the role of the Chamber of Economy of Montenegro is very important in the process of greening the domestic economy and shifting from the linear to the circular method of business. The main challenges when it comes to promoting the green economy and green jobs are lack of knowledge, insufficient understanding of the importance of protection and the efficient use of natural resources, unwillingness to change unless it is conditioned by external factors, for instance, case of COVID-19 pandemic. But regarding strategic documents and initiative, I would like to say that the circular economy and green economy are recognized in the smart specialization strategy of Montenegro. Also, Ministry of Economic Development half year ago established a working group for the green economy. Members of this group are representatives from the governments, municipalities, Chamber of Economy, universities, and NGOs. Recognizing the importance of the green economy and the replacement of the linear business model with the circular one, at the end of 2019, the Chamber of Economy of Montenegro initiated the creation of the roadmap of Montenegro to the circular economy. We are supported by the Office of United Nations Development Program, UNDP, in Montenegro, and with the expertise provided by Circular Change from Slovenia and Deloitte Office from Bosnia and Herzegovina. In accordance with working plan, we will finish the roadmap in April 2021. Our roadmap will be fundamental document for strategy on national level for green and circular economy. Also, we in Chamber of Economy of Montenegro, we implement several projects with topics green economy as well as blue economy through different EU programs.
Excellent. And you mentioned cooperation with universities and the educational sector in that regard, right?
Yes, we have very, very strong cooperation with the universities. Several of projects which is in the field of blue economy are together with, we implement together with universities here in Montenegro and universities from abroad.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Janusinovic. I was really happy to hear also about the joint joint Erasmus program, when you supported the introduction of the doctoral studies for environmental protection at one of the universities in Montenegro, and the chamber also participated. So we see there's a link between industry and education in providing qualifications needed for green transition. Excellent. Thank you so much for your input. And we move back to Mr. Stokic. He's your colleague from Chamber of Commerce Serbia. So let's hear what's the situation in the neighboring country, and are there any similar initiatives of cooperation between businesses and educational partners to provide these green skills or green competences needed for green growth in Western Balkans 6?
Thank you, Jelena. Just for the beginning, I would like to thank to my colleagues Marko Mandić and Mirjana Kovačević for recommendation and having the opportunity and to talk about our views and experiences regarding green jobs and greening the business, and recognizing the needs of the business regarding this green and energy transition. I can say that it seems that energy transition and green transitions are currently still on two tracks. I suppose in time they will probably have to converge into one, and that is one of the biggest challenges for the business and for the business community at all. And we need rational and reasonable and ethically some ethical solution that must be found to decouple these economic development from harmful impact on the environment and natural resources. Of course, International Labour Organization estimates that more than 24 million new green jobs are going to be created till 2030, and it is interesting that it is connected with the different sectors, from healthcare, production and process industry, construction, agriculture, transport, but also there are other sectors such as finance, fashion industry, services, etc. So regarding Serbia and our experiences, it is going to be, as I'm sure, also for all Western Balkans economies, that today I can see that it is more common for large companies that are looking for example, quality suppliers coming from SME sector to conduct special practical training for employees in order to gain an adequate level of competence and skills for their own sustainable and responsible business. It is a classic win-win situation where everybody benefits. For the large company itself, because it is a credible and reliable supplier with the competent staff that contributes to the economic growth, but also for the SMEs that wish to become their partners, and they get trained staff in accordance with the latest business trends and can become long-term partners for them. Regarding this connection of the needs of the business sector and the education system, it is also a big challenge. I'm talking about vocational education, but also higher education as well. New knowledge and new skills should be introduced in the educational programs and secondary and higher education. Of course, theoretical, but more and more practical knowledge and skills are currently incorporated. Of course, it is still not sufficient. It must be accelerated. The most important thing, for my point of view and for our experience for educational institutions, is to have the sufficient independence and flexibility to notice in time that changes in educational programs are inevitable, and to implement these changes efficiently and in cooperation with business and its needs. Chamber of Commerce Serbia is doing a lot in cooperation with the institutions, but with the business community, especially in dual system education, also vocational education, and introducing some new jobs and new green jobs. We see that in the very soon that a lot of new businesses will come, from solar power installers to technologists for new raw materials, product eco designer, engineers, home appliance repairs. So this transition from linear to circular economy is could be one of the generators also for businesses, but also for the education system.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a powerful message for all schools and universities listening to us. And I'm sure many of them have already been picking up those signals and working on improving their curricula, adding new training models, introducing even standards of qualifications. We will hear in a minute about that. But before we move to other speakers, I just wanted to ask you, could you give us one of the examples from your cooperation with companies? Was there any company that will really depict us how it looks when they have to struggle with green transition and find appropriate workforce for that?
Well, yes. For example, Chamber of Commerce and Industry organizes for years the award for corporate social responsibility, and it is very. We have the evidence that big companies already implement a lot of aspects and principles of environmental and social issues. Of course, finance and economy are there, but we need those new principles that should be involved. So they are leaders, but the focus is on small and medium-sized companies and entrepreneurs and startups that should involve those issues. And I can say that, for example, through this dual system of education, this year, 30% of the new companies applied for the dual education model, and we have the 650 applications from the companies for various profiles of dual education that had arrived this year. And we can see that, for example, for the next year, some new educational profiles will be offered in the dual model, like telecommunication, electrician, agricultural machinery operator, culinary technician, hotel and restaurant technician, chemical product manufacturer, industrial robotic technician, etc. But those, I'm sure the key success lies in incorporating elements and principles of sustainability and green development and resource saving into these occupations, and establishing and evolving some completely new jobs, like, for example, greenhouse gas emission measurement and control technician, like technician for wind turbines, biogas operators for biogas plants, etc. Farmer for sustainable agriculture, etc. So it's a big issue and big challenge. We should have even more information. What are the really needs and requirements from the companies, and this connection with the education system on all levels is crucial for the further involvement of green jobs and development of green jobs in the future. So, for example, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, those skills and jobs are the main for example, circular economy development.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, we're at the topic of how should the vocational education training system identify specific knowledge and skills applicable to particular sectors and linked with the awareness about climate change and resource and sustainable development. And I learned about one excellent example also from Serbia, and that's why we have Ms. Korać Mandić from Novi Sad Humanitarian Center. I'm sure there are many examples like that around the region. And Ms. Korać Mandić, she led a project on behalf of civil society organization. And that project was very interesting because it involved bringing together schools, several vocational education and training schools and companies to jointly develop a proposal for qualification standards for renewable energy specialist, if I'm not wrong, electrotechnician for renewable energy, and that qualification standard was approved recently, and the new program will be offered. So, Ms. Korać Mandić, can you tell us how did you identify these needs at the side of the enterprises, and how was this process of bringing together, and what are your lessons learned and maybe messages for other actors in the field who would like to go through the same or similar path? Could you just briefly give us a few sentences about that?
Sure, thank you, Elena. As Elena already mentioned, I come from an NGO, Novi Sad Humanitarian Center. We are basically a charitable nonprofit organization supporting different vulnerable groups, also supporting youth and women as specifically vulnerable groups when it comes to employment. Many young people cannot get a job. Many women are very difficult. They belong to the category of very difficult to employ persons. And we have been active since 2014 in a regional program, SEED program. SEED stands for Support to Education and Development. And this program has been focusing specifically on employment and self-employment of women and youth. The program is supported by the Austrian Developmental Agency and by Volkshilfe Solidarität. So our target municipalities are 4 in Serbia. Among them is Kula municipality. And we have a very good collaboration there with both the local self-government school, Mihailo Pupin in Kula. Our aim basically in this program was to support the development of a training program, of a new qualification training program, which could become accredited and remain there as a local resource, local training resource, which can contribute to the employment of these vulnerable groups that I have mentioned. The idea about the training program came in our close collaboration, in our talks with the professional staff from the technical school in Kula. But the idea was also supported by several other technical schools, electrotechnical schools in Serbia. Actually, they formed a team of professors of electrical engineering, and they worked together on the development of this training program. It's a specialist 1-year-long training program, which was developed earlier in this year. And as you mentioned, it was submitted to the qualification standard was adopted in November this year.
Thank you for sharing this great example, and we wish you success with implementation of this program. And we see how sometimes we say it's not flexible enough to introduce new qualifications, but it seems when you have the right team on board, it can be done. Thank you, Ms. Daniela. And now I switch back to
Elena, you were on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just thanked Ms. Daniela for her input and how we see that it's possible to have these initiatives introduced, although we say sometimes it's not flexible, but we wish you tremendous success in the future, Mrs. Mandić. And now, Ms. Mandić, can we hear you? Can we briefly hear your overview of situation in Bosnia when it comes to greening the economy? What are the challenges and maybe some hopes for the future?
Ja se nadam iskreno da je sad sve u redu sa tehnikom.
Jeste, čujemo vas. Samo izvolite.
Hvala. Ja najprije da želim svima dobar dan i da se zahvalim što imam danas priliku da učestvujem na ovako značajnom skupu, posebno imajući u vidu obraćanje ranije naših kolega koji su Bosnu i Hercegovinu pokazali statistike za Bosnu i Hercegovinu koje nisu nimalo optimistične, nažalost. Ja dolazim iz privrede, odnosno iz industrijskog sektora, odnosno obnašam, kako ste rekli na početku, provodim energijske audite i audite resursne efikasnosti u kompanijama u Bosni i Hercegovini i šire, tako da su moja iskustva po pitanju uvođenja zelenih radnih mjesta, odnosno uslovi tranzicije koji trebaju biti provedeni, odnosno postizanje neutralnosti u regiji, inače u Europskoj uniji, da je to nažalost na vrlo niskom nivou, odnosno nije to zadovoljavajući nivo koji bi očekivali ako gledamo 2030. odnosno 2050. godinu. Tako da na sadašnjem nivou razvoja mi imamo vrlo upitno postizanje ciljeva koje smo i sami preuzeli potpisivanjem Sofijske deklaracije. Ono što bi ja za Bosnu i Hercegovinu izdvojila kao posebno značajno, da je kompletan industrijski sektor u Bosni i Hercegovini zasnovan na fosilnim gorivima, isto tako proizvodnja električne energije je više od 50% zasnovana na fosilnim gorivima, tehnologije su uglavnom zastarjele sa niskim stepenom efikasnosti, a mala i srednja preduzeća su nažalost pogođena ovom pandemijom, tako da je i taj sektor u nekakvom, da kažemo, nimalo ohrabrujućem, kako bi rekla, okruženju. Ono što trebamo svi znati o tranziciji pa u regiji i šire, da je prelazak sa postojećeg koncepta razvoja na tranzicijski koncept, budući koncept, jedna od najradikalnijih mjera koju smo imali do sada. Ona se odnosi na tehničke, na ekonomske, na socijalne, na političke promjene, tako da je neophodno uložiti dodatne napore kako bi postigli ciljeve i ostvarili neke benefite. Svaka promjena treba da donese neke benefite, pa evo i mi očekujemo neke benefite. Ovaj cijeli proces tranzicije podrazumijeva da imamo drugi pristup i energiji i proizvodnji i načinu života općenito. Ovdje posebno za Bosnu i Hercegovinu i region napomenula rudarska područja koja su za nas interesantna. U Bosni i Hercegovini trenutno je 11 rudnika i 5 termoelektrana koji imaju oko 17.000 zaposlenih ljudi koji u procesu tranzicije trebaju steći nova znanja i vještine za nove poslove koji će doprinijeti očuvanju okoliša, a naravno i održivom razvoju. Mislim, to je cilj svih nas da stanje popravljamo na bolje. Moje mišljenje u radu koje imam sa kompanijama, odnosno industrijskim sektorima, da je uz neku sistemsko planiranje i implementaciju tranzicija može biti naša razvojna šansa, a prije svega pokrenule bi se neke druge investicije za koje bi trebale neke druge vještine i kad bi se te investicije realizirale, ljudi koji bi radili na tim projektima, odnosno tim industrijama, morali bi imati neke nove vještine. Tako da nam je obrazovanje jedan od ključnih faktora, znanja su nešto što je najvrijednije. A kao ilustraciju stanja po pitanju obrazovanja, odnosno interesa ljudi, ja bi navela jednu radionicu koju smo mi održali u Sarajevu prije 2 dana, koja je na temu unapređenja energijske efikasnosti u industrijskim preduzećima u Bosni i Hercegovini. Mi smo za 2 dana imali više od 100 prijavljenih učesnika na takvu radionicu, što nama govori da je privreda svjesna promjena i tranzicije koja se događa, no međutim oni se nalaze u nekakvom položaju da ne mogu doći do novih tehnologija, novih znanja. Oni su naprosto zabavljeni onim svojim svakodnevnim poslovima, tako da je njima neophodna zaista podrška nekih obrazovnih institucija ili konsultanata ili tehničkih lica koje će im pomoći da oni ovu krizu prođu, pa evo ne bi je nazvala krizu, jel tranzicija kriza ili je šansa, to zavisi od nas sami. Evo, ja se nadam da sam u 2-3 minute uspjela otprilike reći šta se to događa po pitanju tranzicija industrijskog sektora, pa evo, ako neko ima pitanja, možemo još razgovarati na ovu temu.
Da, naravno. Hvala vam puno, gospođo Manić. Bili ste, držali ste se vremena i vi i prethodni govornici. Meni je jako žao, ali nemamo puno vremena da nastavimo diskusiju. Sada ću se prebaciti na engleski. I'm just trying to summarize briefly. We had a very brief discussion. We just tackled the topic of greening VAT and to address greening of the industry and economy. And we had a chance to hear that what are the challenges on the side of business community and challenges for workers. As Ms. Manic mentioned, there are many of those who will need to go through pre-qualification or additional education to stay employable in terms of green transition. But we also heard about some encouraging examples of introducing new profiles, new green profiles, but also adding green standards and green competencies to the existing educational profiles. I think there will be more opportunity to explore this important topic in future, and also to further support from the RCF in this department. Thank you so much once again to all of my panelists. It's been a tremendous and really nice experience working with you and organizing this panel. Now I will hand over to my colleague Renato Vasili. Renato will lead us through another topic a bit connected. We mentioned here also digitalization as one of the options for more greening and more sustainable solutions. But Renato, you would know how to continue the story now.
Many thanks, Jelena. As you mentioned previously, actually we have to be we are strict with the timing now, so we have to be quite efficient, and I would also invite the panelists to be efficient, and we close it at 12:30, and then we break for a virtual coffee. Hello to everybody, and thank you very much to all the attendees and the speakers. I welcome you to the panel discussions on the cooperative VAT and digitalization. I would also like to briefly introduce our notable speakers that will be with us in this panel. Ms. Anja Quiring, the Regional Director for Southeastern Europe from German Eastern Business Association. Ms. Albana Shkurta, the Managing Director of Lufthansa Industry Solutions in Albania. And Ms. Ulrike Damjanovic, Senior Human Capital Development Expert from European Training Foundation. Thanks a lot for being with us today. We heard from previous speakers the importance and relevance of digitalization in economic growth, and particularly in vocational education and training. And digital transformation is changing the way we communicate, we work, we learn, and live in a way. So it changes the way we do business and interact in our daily activities. The use of digital technologies can generate significant benefits in terms of speed, efficiency, and transparency across borders in many different sectors. Exploiting these untapped potentials of digital integration ensures the supply of innovative and competitive services to customers and businesses, and acts as an important level also for socioeconomic development, high-value job generation, and a vibrant knowledge-based society. These were actually what I just mentioned, the key topics of the multi-annual action plan adopted at the Western Balkans Summit in Trieste in 2017, and being reconfirmed last year in Sofia in a meeting of Western Balkan countries high-level representatives. So the digital agenda became part of the MEP and was included as a pillar of the Berlin process, and it aims to unlock access to the digital economy by integrating the region into the pan-European digital market. Of course, this requires future-proof digitization strategies, updated regulatory environment, improved infrastructure, and most importantly, access to it, and digital literacy as well. RCF puts a special focus on these changes and challenges in the context of the vocational education, training and digitization, both in the work processes and in teaching, supported by digital media in vocational training. Over the past decade, WB6 economies have emerged as strong contenders in 3 segments: software development, back office development, and call centers. And that because of the cost competitiveness, proximity to EU markets, as well as strong language skills of its workers' positions. This region strongly in the competition to attract BPTO, business and process and technology outsource providers. The East Committee of German business is a major regional initiative of German business for 29 countries in Central Eastern Europe, Eastern and Southern Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, and Central Asia. And I would like to give the word to Ms. Quiring. And Ms. Quiring, given your extensive work in the WB6 Plus region about digitalization and cooperation you had with key players, in your opinion, what are the strengths and competitive advantages of WB6 economies in addressing the digital agenda and becoming key players and strong contenders in ICT?
Thank you very much, Renato, for this introduction, and thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to this conference. I hope you can hear me well. First question. Perfect. Yes, so actually, you already mentioned so many important points when it comes to digitalization, and I really can support this. And this is why we, as a German Eastern Business Association, were from the very beginning strong supporters of the dialogue on digitalization within the region of the Western Balkans 6 economies. And because we see, first of all, a lot of potential when it comes to digitalization, which is actually part of the further economic development of the region. And when we discuss the question of industrialization, or let me put it better, the reindustrialization of the region, and also to enhance the other sectors which were mentioned in the previous panel already when it comes to green transformation, then digitalization is really one of the core segments. And what we see over the last years is a quite dynamic development of the ICT sector itself in the region. So there are a lot of young companies coming up and where we see a lot of potential for further enhancing cooperation with companies from the European internal market, with companies in the region. So therefore, we also strongly, of course, support all efforts of governmental structures as well as others to support digital, so the question of enhancing digital skills. But let me add a second point, which was actually already mentioned somehow in all these, in all the comments of the previous speakers. It is really important to take digitalization and the question of digital skills as one of the parts which is important for the economic development at all. In all the sectors, and also to support the SMEs to develop further to be part of this topic, what we call the fourth industrial revolution, or industry 4.0. So it was already also mentioned that one of the chances for the region and the economies of the region is to be part, even stronger, be part of the supply chains of the European companies, of companies of the European internal market. And you mentioned the question of transparency, which is also somehow connected to the question of digitalization, because I think what we will see more and more, these are tenders which will be brought in on a digital level, and to also enhance digitalization. So we need to support, and this is what we really also would like to comment on a positive way, that there is a strong support also for SMEs to be part and to digitalize further their businesses. And of course, they need the workforce, which is skilled already and which can improve their skills even while working. So we are not just talking about the vocational educational training, which is really essential for all of us, but also about long life learning. I would like to add this point into the discussion, and maybe to just one last comment, because we are running out of time, is to bridge a bit with the previous panel on green economy. So indeed, the Green Deal, or the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans, is one of the biggest challenges we can name for all the companies, actually worldwide, but at least in Europe. But there's also big potential in it, because we need innovations to take the path on greening the economy, to decarbonize. And we see there's a lot of potential, especially for the region, to be part of these innovations, which are of course also rely on digital skills and on enhancing the digital literacy. You mentioned that word as well, because we need the ones improving and laying the foundations for being digital, but we need also the people using these services provided by the companies. So there's a two-way street, I would say, and but with this, I would like to leave the floor, especially to the companies and the European Training Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Green, for the insights and on the relevance of digitalization as a key factor to economic growth, actually, for all WB6 economies. And as you rightfully mentioned, all these attractive features of our economies include the competitive labor, business operating costs, proximity to most major clients and companies in core European countries, and of course availability of labor force across most of the region is another key competitive advantage. Actually, PwC study in 2020 found that ICT sector in the region is amongst the fastest growing industries, driven by good supply of young well-educated IT experts at among the lowest labor costs in the region. Still, there is an increasing problem in recruiting staff with the right skill sets. Many vacancies remain unfilled. Companies struggle to recruit people with relevant skills. Yeah, I mean, the reason for this is largely the mismatch between the skills being nurtured and developed by the region's TVET providers and those demanded by employers. Lufthansa Industry Solutions is based in Tirana and is a leading IT company in the market, which currently employs more than 260 employees and offers a wide range of job opportunities as well as prospects in a variety of industries. I would like to ask Ms. Shkurta that how do you describe the availability of skilled labor force in ICT? What was your experience with that? And is the region or the neighboring countries prepared to address the mismatch between the skills developed by TVET providers and those demanded by international companies?
Yes, thanks Renato for this question. And when Lufthansa Industry Solutions was evaluating the possibility of a nearshore company, they were looking towards the Western Balkan region, which is the obvious choice for such purpose now in Europe. The first challenge for considering Albania was, are there enough skilled people? When our company started 4 years ago, there was only one company with more than 100 IT consultants. Today, there are at least 5, and the number is growing. Our company, as you already mentioned, currently employs 260, and we have plans that by end of next year, we are going to have more than 300 employees. Almost all of them are IT engineers or specialized in software development. The market is growing, especially also driven by the higher demand for digitalization brought about by the pandemics, as we already know. This brings, of course, a lot of pressure on the cost competitiveness, particularly as the market for talent has now become truly global, not just Albania, not just Western Balkan region, but truly global. If you look at the region, it is, I think, a similar view. And I can say for sure, particularly in the neighboring regions in Kosovo or in North Macedonia. The second challenge was how easily would it be to scale up? Our candidates for employment come from institutions of higher education, which are placing more focus in the recent years in ICT fields, particularly the private institutions, which are more agile when it comes to responding to the needs of the market. We get better and better skilled students from the higher education, but still there's always a gap between the current skills level and the one required by international companies. In our case, this has been successfully addressed by dedicated training and intensive onboarding programs, which serve to close this gap, not only in technologies, but also the culture and methodology of work. We estimate about 10 to 15% of our annual budget is invested in these activities. I think in the Balkan region, in the recent years, we experienced a proliferation of dedicated training academies in the field of ICT that help the organizations with large-scale onboarding programs. This way, the organizations can focus on more detailed training programs or in the training of the more qualified workforce like management or other more skilled levels. And they help with onboarding of more junior employees, those who are coming fresh from the university. But another very important stream is through reskilling, approaching those people with a higher education degree for which there might not be available jobs right now, or not in the extent that they are actually available in the market. Attending such programs might bring someone from zero to becoming a developer in 6 to 9 months. And these programs are also possible to be attended online and organized in English language. So therefore, it is easily available to all the young people across the region and provides a better opportunity to kind of address this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Shkurta, for the excellent work on positioning Lufthansa Industry Solutions as a key player in the market, and for this innovative approach in bridging the skills gap. That's a very good example, which I hopefully will be followed by other EU companies. It's true, actually, what you say. Despite the positive development, still the sector is faced with challenges such as declining cost competitiveness, fragmentation of the sectors, which leaves these BPTO firms in the Western Balkans too small to compete successfully. Increasing level of required worker skills is critical to sustaining the current success in the ICT sector. And international companies in this regard are demanding higher level of skills for both manager and line employees. So to meet rising employment demand for these skills, investments are needed that target both quality and quantity of human capital in the sector, increase private sector involvement as well, and create more tailored educational programs in the field of digitization. And a specific challenge in this is posed by the digitization in the speed of the new developments. In ever faster cycles of innovation, curricula and training regulations therefore need to be understood as well as quickly and proactively updated. The European Training Foundation has been actively supporting the development of digital skills and learning within a lifelong learning perspective, in partnership with key stakeholders and other international and donor organizations. So I'll give the floor now to Ms. Damjanovic, and I'd like to ask you, Ulrike, in a fast-changing technological landscape and facing this increasing need in both quality and quantity of skilled labor force, how can the digital competencies be integrated into curricula and training regulations?
Renato, thank you very much for your question. I would like to start on a positive note, because if you look at the past 2 years that we have faced in the Corona crisis, we have seen also how quickly education systems, not only in the region, but everywhere, have adjusted. There was a need, there was a necessity, and everybody always said systems are slow, and there was a need there. And they only could do it also in partnership. This partnership that we are discussing since this morning, in partnership with the private sector. We have also seen that the economies in the region, they have tested EU tools like Selfie, which gives education institution an idea about their readiness for digital learning and teaching. And they will follow up on this. So also this is very promising. And innovation was mentioned just this morning again. The economies, all 6 of them, have signed on 6 October this year the Western Balkans Innovation Agenda for research and education, culture, youth and sport. There is commitment to the European Pillar of Social Rights. We have heard this morning from Sinisha again the importance of digital skill strategies. And all this, it was said this morning about competitiveness, but it is important to talk about inclusive competitiveness. So let me start with this first comments. So I think we can agree a lot has happened, but all my pre-speakers have really said and expressed it very clearly that there are many challenges that need to be addressed, but not only the economies in the region. We have these challenges everywhere. And your question, Renato, brings me especially on the issue on 2 issues in your question. One is the quality and one is the quantity. And let me answer first on the quality. You talk about curriculum revision. This is the question to me. But it is important to address the whole learning environment. It is not enough for the education system only to look at curricula. You need the teachers that implement them. You need the equipment, as we heard this morning. We need economic sectors that need these people. We need labor market that we just heard from Lufthansa that are ready in certain areas and what need these skills. So I think this is what I want to stress here is quality, as Mr. Vesovic mentioned also this morning. Nothing has changed, but quality remains an important challenge to be addressed. And there it's really about comprehensive reforms, and also not only for young people, but also for adults. Let's not forget this in this whole discussion of curricula of reforms, because we face an aging population as well, not only the young people in the region. But I'm happy to say also, and I'm working long in the region, the economies work a lot on this, and they continue to work on this. So I think we need to continue this drive. Second point on the quantity. The quantity before coming here, I think, is a very important question. And here, when you talk about quantity, it's not about providing more courses. I think the major issue is, first of all, access for all, for reskilling and upskilling. So that really everybody, young and adults, have access to upskilling and reskilling opportunities. And also very important that we can reach out to the vulnerable groups and and young people, to the so-called needs group, as we talk nowadays, not in education, employment, or training, because we see we have always the same convicted ones that participate in re- and upskilling. So important for quantity is reach out, and the colleague before from Lufthansa, I think, said it very nicely. We need tailor-made offers, and we need also forward-looking offers for training. And she said, for instance, private sectors very quickly on this, so that you see, okay, there is a potential in higher education for the future. So this is my reflection, and based on our work as ETF in the region. So quantity is an access issue, and quality, as on the point, is not only about curricula. No, it is about the whole system. And let me finish with 2 key messages, because also I stick to my time. My key message from my work in the region and from the ETF work in the region is, I think we need to continue to work on this partnership, like KfW is doing with these programs, like there are other initiatives. The topic is an old one, the partnership. But I think it's more than ever necessary. And if you look, we are sitting on our computers. It needs new means, new tools, and new partners, also like NGO. We had an NGO from Serbia here. And so this is, so let's continue. And the second one is also, please, all of us, benefit of policies, initiative, and tools. We talk about the enlargement region, not to forget it. We have Erasmus Plus, just in November was launched. Also the opportunity that vocational education and training can participate in Erasmus Plus. We have Youth Guarantee. We have the huge initiative of KfW. And in vocational training, we have the VET Council recommendation until 27 and the Osnabrück, which again builds on public-private partnership. So the principle is always the same for the labor market. And finally, also to mention here, in this IPA 3 has just been launched, the financial instrument for the region 27 for reforms. So my message here, benefit, there's a lot existing, and let's continue in our strive together as partners. Thank you. Over back to you. I hope I was not too long.
No, it was just fine, Ulrike, and thank you very much for the insights, and thank you very much as well for the messages conveyed. And as regards to this, as my concluding notes to this session, as regards the integration of digital competencies, as you said, into curricula, as it concerns the RCF work into this, during the future project implementations, we'll facilitate the development of solutions to keep curricula and training regulations flexible enough for different types of training institutions to fill them with relevant content and the degree of digital competencies they are able or willing to teach. And that would, let's say, bring us into the direction that you mentioned, towards quality of digital learning. I would like to thank all the panelists for their participation and contribution to the discussions. We have a coffee break now, I assume.
Yes,
and I
indeed.
invite all attendees to attend the exhibit hall, besides having their coffee. Jelena, are we on time? Yes.
Yes, we will have a 10 minutes break now to leave you some floor to refresh. And then after 10 minutes, we will continue with a topic about regional cooperation around the Western Balkans 6 region.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Albana, Anya, and Ulrike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I think, can the technical support confirm if
Yep, sorry, this is Mihailo. Yeah,
Okay.
so I can hear you, and also interpreters are ready for work.
Okay, thank you, Mihailo.
You're welcome.
Welcome back and good afternoon. This was really short break, but we are running out of time, so I think we may resume with the next session on regional integration. My name is Biljana Simeonova. I'm the regional coordinator with the RCF. You already met my colleagues in the previous panels. And for the Western Balkans 6 economies, the regional cooperation is proclaimed a condition for their European integration. The regional cooperation is an essential element for stabilization and association, which is the process of leading the Western Balkans countries towards European membership. With regard to the private sector and human capital, competitive economy is good for the region, it's also good for Europe. But unfortunately, we still see that we have really weak competitiveness. We still have really high long-term unemployment among the young people, of course, in these last years and in adult aged population. Also, the businesses are in the same time struggling to find qualified staff. And in parallel, there is this low investment in education. The Common Regional Market is an initiative that encourages cross-border partnership and cooperation. And this was also mentioned this morning by our speakers from the CEB and RCC, Mr. Omic and Mr. Maricic. This initiative would help the region to address the shared challenges and would also expand to activities that facilitate the regional cooperation and partnerships, and also would foster European standards in the field of TVET among these 6 Western Balkan countries. Cooperation between agencies for vocational education and chambers of commerce should be still supported, and in order to be able to overcome this gap of skills that are really essential for the labor market on the regional level, not just in the countries themselves. Today, we have in this session 5 panelists. We invited 5 because we wanted to really share the experiences from different projects, different institutions, and different backgrounds, so they would maybe motivate and give opportunities and just encourage other initiatives so that other actors and agents would support this regional cooperation and hopefully actively get involved in the regional cooperation. We are talking about these institutions that are working in the VET, both formally and non-formally. And just among these 5 panelists is Ms. Natasha Janevska. I would like to invite her. I think she's here and she can hear me well. Natasha is a VET expert from the Macedonian Chamber of Commerce. And now we know that the Chamber is one of the founders of the CIF. As the CIF was established with the aim to give a voice to the businesses, to promote the business community, to promote the needs of the business community, and to facilitate inter-business contacts, and to promote the region as one investment destination, which is really important for this panel discussion. The Macedonian Chamber is also part of the Two Regos project, which is working towards regionally based occupational standards. So if Natasha can hear me, I think she's here. I would like to ask Natasha if you can tell us if and how the needs of the businesses are to be integrated in these regionally based occupational standards. And actually, what is this Two Regos project?
Добар ден и од мене и благодарам на можноста за да можем да учествувам на оваа годишна конференција организирана од страна на регионалниот фонд за предизвици. Само сакам да нагласам дека не можеме да зборуваме за глобализација воопшто во светот ако немаме една заедничка соработка на земјите од регионот во кој што се наоѓаме. Токму тоа беше и иницијативата за формирање на Коморскиот инвестициски форум за земјите од Западен Балкан и неговото делување за подобрување на бизнис климата за создавање на заедничка економска област на Западен Балкан, што и практично го покажа тоа во своето постоење. Меѓутоа, оваа регионална соработка продолжи и на полето на образованието, се со цел да се создадат човечки ресурси кои што се релевантни за поддршката и продуктивноста на компаниите. Тоа се виде преку заложбата и за воспоставување на дуалното образование, затоа што не можеме да зборуваме за извоз и конкурентност на пазарот на труд, доколку и воопшто на пазарот, доколку немаме образование, односно немаме квалификуван кадар, а сето тоа ја возможува и мобилноста низ регионот. Меѓутоа, за да можеме ова да го реализираме, треба да имаме едни силни механизми, каде што ќе имаме соработка помеѓу приватниот и помеѓу јавниот сектор во стручното образование, меѓутоа и засилено учество на бизнис заедницата во дефинирањето на сите оние потребни вештини кои што се бараат на пазарот на трудот. Ваквото нешто беше воспоставено преку регионалниот фонд за предизвици, каде што имаме уште една значајна соработка, регионална соработка на полето на образованието. Но да продолжам понатаму, за среќа наша имавме уште еден регионален проект за една регионална соработка, тоа е проектот Турегос, каде што беа креирани регионални стандарди на занимања. Овој проект се реализираше преку ЕРИСЕ, а беше финансиран од страна на Австриската агенција за развој со средствата од Австриската соработка за развој. Поддршка дадоа и Коморскиот инвестициски форум и вроди со многу плод за кој што можеме да се пофалиме. Всушност, преку еден заеднички диалог, представниците не само на бизнис заедницата, туку и на образовните институции за стручно образование и обука, со поддршка на стопанските комори, креира 5 регионални стандарди на занимања врз основа на потребите на бизнис заедницата на регионално ниво. Можам да напоменам дека тоа беа хотелско-угостителски техничар од угостителско-туристичкиот сектор. Понатаму имавме монтер за сува градба, поставувач на подови, молери и поставувач на плочки од градежниот сектор, односно секторот градежништво и геодезија. Многу беше интересно што имавме долги консултативни состаноци, каде што во самите стандарди на занимања треба да бидат внесени сите оние релевантни вештини според барањата на бизнис заедницата, меѓутоа тие треба да бидат карактеристични за сите економии од земјите од Западен Балкан, да бидат признати не само на регионално ниво, туку да бидат признати и одобрени на национално ниво, затоа што беа една добра и солидна основа за подоцна да се изготват стандардите за квалификација, кои што пак се исто така солидна основа за изготвување на образовните програми кои што треба да се изучуваат во сите училишта на целиот регион, во земјите од Западен Балкан. Тоа беше можност да се создаде една многу важна регионална соработка на полето на образованието, односно создавање на единствени предуслови за образование со цел да можеме да го подобриме заедничкиот пазар. Се создадоа можност за создавање на универзални квалификации, кои што ќе бидат признати во земјите од регионот на Западен Балкан, меѓутоа ќе овозможат вработување на младите веднаш по завршувањето на нивниот образовен процес. Одиме на зголемена вработливост преку еден системски пристап на една ваква пазарно ориентирана побарувачка, олеснета мобилност на пазарот на труд и што е најважно да се намали и да се потисне нелегалниот пазар на труд кој што постои сега во земјите од Западен Балкан.
Благодарам, Natasha. Thank you, Natasha. This is a really good initiative, and as you mentioned, there are till now 5 qualifications that were regionally recognized, but we hope that after this project ends and maybe there will be another initiatives that will actually give us developed qualification standards that will be actually expanded to other professions recognized in the region, and people would can actually travel and work, which is the aim of this regional cooperation and this common regional market. This is the goal that is not just services and products, but also people were able to actually have this mobility and to be able to work and live in the region. Now I would like...
Само би сакала да додадам дека успешноста на овој проект кој што придонесе за креирање на овие стандарди, но и низа документи и методологии по кои работевме, направи да продолжиме со проектот сега со едно нова тема на која што се фокусиравме, тоа е зајакнување на стручното образование и обука и обезбедување на квалитет во стручното образование и во општото образование во земјите од југоисточна Европа, каде што ќе се фокусираме на две значајни компоненти. Едната е модернизација на стручното образование и обука преку унапредување на атрактивноста и квалитетот на стручното образование и обука, а второто е осигурување на квалитетот во општото образование, каде што сите оние институции кои што се занимаваат со општото образование и со обезбедувањето на квалитетот ќе бидат обучени за една квалитетна надворешна евалуација и внатрешна самоевалуација.
Thank you, Natasha. So as I said, you are expanding your activities, and this is good because we, as RCF, we would like to get involved and to promote any kind of cooperation and partnership between the chambers and the VET institutions. So this is one of the topics of our panel today, and I would like to move now, as we are actually running out of time, with Maja Krstevska. She is the head of department for development and adoption of programs within the Adult Education Center in Skopje. This is a public institution. So we move to the non-formal VET education. And as the other speakers mentioned before, and I also in the introduction mentioned, the concept of lifelong learning is becoming more and more important, and the challenge is to be up to date with the market needs of the society and the businesses. And also just an information there to just think about approximately 47% of the adults between 25 and 64 years of age in the EU, I'm talking about the Western Balkan states, engage in some kind of formal or non-formal education, which is the continuous education and training. So more and more countries were actually have agreed to somehow develop strategies or activities how this non-formal continuous education and training would be recognized in the countries, and of course for this now in this conference in the region. We still have this high level of unemployment, and the companies often have difficulties to find the qualified staff, and the non-formal vocational training institutions are actually oriented towards these existing needs of the businesses. So Maja, I would like to welcome you. Thank you for accepting to be part of this conference. I can see you. I think you can also hear me. I would like to just ask you directly, because of this 5 minutes limit for every speaker. Are there any initiatives for recognition of this qualification and certificates that are issued by the non-formal training centers in the region? And how do employers actually look on these qualifications? Are they accepting the qualifications? I know when we discussed this yesterday and the days before, you told me that some countries actually, although there have not been formal agreements, in some countries, the employers are actually recognizing these certificates because of this mismatch of skills, and they cannot find the proper qualified staff. Маја, дали ме слушате?
Да, ве слушам. Ви благодарам. Благодарам за можноста да бидам дел од оваа конференција и во неколку зборови би сакала да ве запознам со работата и клучната алка за образование на возрастни во нашата држава. Значи, во нашата установа, Центар за образование на возрастни, се верификуваат програми кои што водат кон квалификации, дел од квалификации, како и вештини. Лицата кои што ќе посетуваат вакви обуки, на крај од обуката се стекнуваат со државни сертификати, државно признати, бидејќи станува збор за неформално образование, сепак препознатливоста на сертификатите зависи од работодавачите. Но имаме искуство од регионална соработка со некои држави од нашиот регион, дека во директна комуникација со нашиот центар и Министерството за образование бараат информација дали лицата кои што се стекнале со вакви сертификати се на некој начин стекнати од страна на верификувани институции и на тој начин им ги признаваат, односно лицата со тој сертификат се вработени во регионот. До сега во центарот се верификувани околу 700 програми и реализирани околу 450 обуки и вкупно вклучени се околу 5500 учесници од најразлични профили. Друго што можеме да кажеме, значи дека покрај верификацијата на програмите за образование на возрастни, центарот поддржува и работна група, односно веќе се изработени и документи за концепција за основно образование на возрастни. Исто и тоа е пилотирано во нашата држава и на тој начин се оди кон дополнителни документи кои што треба да се доработат, за да може да го развиеме и основното образование на возрастни на лицата кои што се исклучени од образовниот систем од било кои причини. На тој начин се помага и во оформувањето на средно стручно образование на возрастни. Значи имаме поддршка на лицата кои што исто така од било кои причини не го завршиле своето образование. Понатаму може да споменам дека една од актуелната активност во центарот и образованието на возрастните е воведувањето на системот на валидација на неформално и информално учење, за кое што е направена и односно е пилотирано во соработка со проектот за образование за вработување, во соработка со Хелветас од Швајцарија и Македонскиот центар за граѓанско образование, и реализирано, односно се има извршено пилотирање на валидација на 7 кандидати од профилот Келнер и лицата се поминати низ процесот на валидација и на тој начин се стекнале со државен сертификат.
Maya, благодарам. Thank you, Maya. Само сакав да ве also wanted to ask, are there any initiatives of regional cooperation between the agencies, state agencies or private that are dealing with adult education?
Да, ние и досега имаме во периодот соработка со регионална соработка со Босна, Црна Гора, Косово, размена на искуства како и добри пракси. На тој начин и сме дојдени до контактите институционално со државиве од регионот и на тој начин имаме беспрекорна соработка со институциите од регионот и препознавање на сертификатите за образование на возрастни.
Thank you, Maya. Благодарам што прифативте да бидете дел од овој панел.
Ms. Simeonova, this is technical support speaking. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Maya. Благодарам, Maya, што прифативте да бидете дел од оваа конференција и што одговоривте позитивно на нашиот повик. I would now like to hear the experiences from the vet school. We heard about the labor markets and the work processes that are changing rapidly, and the continuous vocational education and training will also help to reduce these shortages of qualified staff. So this is why we wanted to involve also the formal and the informal education agents in the society. But now I would like to continue with the schools, the vet schools. And today we have Mr. Sasha Nedesky, who is the principal of the Setnaum Ohridsky Secondary School from Ohrid. Mr. Nedesky, thank you for participating in this conference, and thank you for accepting the invitation. And Setnaum Ohridsky School is already implementing dual education and also is actively cooperating with other vet schools in the region. So I would like to ask you, please, to share your experiences. How do you exchange experiences in the field of vet, and how this cooperation actually started? Maybe this, what you're going to say today will motivate other schools, so they will just initiate their own activities and cooperate with other schools in the region. Sasha?
Благодарам Билјана, исто така и мене ми е задоволство што присуствувам на оваа панел дискусија. Најнапред да ги поздравам сите. Јас сум Саша Недески, директор на Општинскиот електромашински училишен центар Свети Наум Охридски од Охрид. Ги поздравам сите присутни на регионалната конференција за Западен Балкан. Најнапред би сакал да се заблагодарам на KfW банката и RCF фондот, што на конзорциумот предводен од нашето училиште и компаниите Костел, ЛТХ, Леарница и ОДВ Електрик од Охрид ни го одобрија грантот за реализација на нашиот проект со кој аплициравме до RCF фондот за Западен Балкан, а тоа е за набавка на нова опрема за нашата училишна работилница. Во нашето училиште се реализира настава од електротехничка, машинска, сообраќајна струка и лични услуги за 800 ученици, од кои 98 се во дуално образование во профилите техничар за индустријска мехатроника и техничар за производно машинство со 4 годишно траење. Веќе 4 години сме активна членка на Комисијата за дуално образование, координирана од делегацијата на германското стопанство во Република Северна Македонија, а што се однесува до соработка со училиштата од регионот, активно учествуваме во меѓународниот надпревар за мехатроника Балкан Јуниор, кој се одржува еднаш годишно, а на кој учествуваат 8 држави од регионот. И тоа од Република Србија техничка школа Валјево, од Република Турција Инону Метал од Истанбул, од Република Словенија школски центар Велење, од Босна и Херцеговина мешовита школа средња школа Тешањ, од Црна Гора средња стручна школа од Никшич, од Романија Томис од Констанца и од Република Хрватска средња школа Мате Блажин од Лави. Четиридневниот надпревар се состои од запознавање на градот домаќин и училиштето, а надпреварачкиот дел се состои од практичен и теоретски дел кој го оценуваат комисии составени од представници на тимовите учесници на надпреварот. Учениците се сместени кај ученици од училиштето домаќин, со што се запознаваат и со културата и традицијата на градот и самата држава. Во 2019 година нашето училиште беше домаќин на 7-миот поред Балкан Јуниор, на кој нашиот тим го освои 3-то место. Следниот требаше да се одржи во Констанца во Романија, но поради пандемијата надпреварот е одложен. Посебна соработка имаме со техничка школа од Валјево, од Република Србија, каде исто така се реализира настава во дуално образование, а со кој училиште имаме подпишано меморандум за збратимување. Во рамките на оваа соработка 15 ученици и 5 професори ги посетуваат во месец октомври училиштето од Валјево, а во месец април треба да биде посетено училиштето од Охрид. Посетата трае 4 дена, за кој период се посетува наставата во училиштето домаќин, со што се разминуваат искуства од опременост на работилниците и начинот на реализација на самата настава. Се одржуваат и спортски надпревари, посета на културно-историските знаменитости на градот. Исто така учениците се сместени кај ученици, со што се запознаваат со културата и традицијата на градот домаќин. Вклучени сме како партнер училиште во рамките на Digital Vet Erasmus Plus проект, кој се реализира во почетна фаза од 2021 година од ноември месец до 2023 година, каде носител на проектот е стручното училиште Голчук од Турција, а партнери во проектот се училишта од Галова и Ирска, Албор Данска, Хераклион од Грција и Бергара од Шпанија. Со оглед дека е кратко времето за презентација, ќе морам побрзо, не можам толку опширно да образлагам од што се состои цел овој проект. Ќе се задржам само нашиот дел од проектот се состои од изработка на веб страна, на Moodle платформа и нејзино ажурирање, изработка на весник, брошура и видео презентација на клучните активности од проектот. Исто така представници сме за југозападниот регион во председателството на Сдруженијето на електромашински сообраќајни центри од Република Северна Македонија, кој ги организира регионалните и државниот надпревар за профилите од електротехничка, машинска и сообраќајна струка, кои се состојат од теоретски и практичен дел. Во иднина остануваме отворени за идна соработка и со други држави и училишта од регионот. И на крајот уште еднаш да ви се заблагодарам за поканата да бидам панелист на регионалната конференција за Западен Балкан и ви посакувам убав ден.
Thank you, Mr. Nedeski. Благодарам, Director Nedeski. I would like to also mention, as you also yourself said, that you are one of our grantees. You are actually one of the awarded projects in the first RCF call, and we are looking forward to cooperating with you in the next 2 or 3 years. Our next panelist is Mr. Dimitar Georgiev. He's the principal of the Secondary Electrotechnical School Mikhailo Pupin in Skopje. And while we actually invited this school and Mr. Georgiev to be present to share experience today, it was because last week they had a high delegation from Bosnia and Herzegovina visiting the school. And also they have quite a good initiative of cooperating with other schools and projects in the region. Also, they have also activities of mobility of students and also mobility of vet teachers in the region. So Mr. Georgiev, thank you for accepting the invitation to be part of this panel. And could you just tell us also shortly in 5 minutes more about these cooperative activities and what was this delegation visiting you for, what was the purpose, and what are your future initiatives with this cooperation and project initiative?
Благодарам, Билјана. Штувани дами и господа, чест и задоволство ми е во неколку минутно обраќање да го представам Средното електротехничко училиште на град Скопје Михаило Пупин. Јас сум Димитар Георгиев, магистар по спортски менеджмент, директор на ово училиште. Михаило Пупин, можам да се похвалам, е правенецот, односно пионерот на дуалното образование во Република Северна Македонија, благодарение на еден проект 20-20-20 од ева на компанијата, од кој проект првите 16, односно 20 ученика веќе беа запослени оваа година во самата компанија. Овој проект ни овозможи да направиме и соработка и со многу други компании. Благодарение на тие соработка со тие компании, моментално 18 големи и мали компании од нашата држава, можам да кажам слободно дека во 2018 година ово училиште броеше 614 ученика, додека ова учебна година училиштето брои 904 ученика, тоа е 300 ученика зголемен бројот на ученици за само 3 години, благодарение на сите на оваа соработка со компаниите и воведувањето на дуалното образование во нашето училиште. Можам да кажам слободно дека сите наши ученици и она препознавање на што значи стручното образование е благодарение што нашите ученици сите практични вежби, односно лабораториски вежби ги изведуваат во овие 18 компании. Исто така, нашето училиште нуди и соработка со училишта од меѓународен карактер, односно од регионот, така да имаме соработка со електротехничката школа од Крајн, од Словенија, потоа Роџер Бошковиќ од Винковци, Михаило Пупин од Нови Сад и години наназад, само минатата година поради ковид пандемијата имаше мал застој, но еве сега повторно ќе ја продолжиме тоа. Наши ученици вршиме размена на ученици со овие училишта, каде што добиваме размена на искуство и не само на ученици, туку и на професори, а исто така и заеднички настапуваме на одредени проекти. Туку што завршивме еден голем проект од Еразмус К2 инновацијата, каде што ние бевме носители за виртуелно учење на овие сите 3 училишта. Можам да кажам дека еве минатата недела, како што прашавте, во посета на нашето училиште и дојде висока делегација од Босна и Херцеговина, односно од Зеница, Банатскиот кантон, каде министерот за образование заедно со својата делегација го посети нашето училиште, каде беше представено сето оно ние што го нудиме на пазарот на трудот, а тоа е се профили од електротехничката струка и тоа е единствена струка во училиште каде што имаме подпрофили, 4 подпрофили, од кои најбарана е компјутерската техника и автоматика. Имаме две, односно 3 дуални паралелки во два профила и се надеваме дека од следната година учебна, односно од септември месец наредната 22 ќе воведеме и уште една дуална паралелка во уште еден профил, така да целосно го офатиме работењето на училиштето со дуални паралелки, бидејќи и ние сме и носители и први на територија на Република Северна Македонија која воведе дуално образование. Соработката со Босна и Херцеговина, односно она што е договорено од состанокот што беше минатата недела е дека во почетокот на идната година наша делегација, односно од училиштето, ќе одиме и официјално да го заокружиме со подпишување на меморандум за соработка со две училишта од Босна и Херцеговина, кои ќе помогнат во размената на искуства на сето она што ние го работиме како училишта, размената на професори и исто така заедничко настапување во проекти кои би биле од меѓународен карактер. Сакам да напоменам повторно и бидејќи е кратко времето, дека благодарение на цела онаа соработка што ја нудиме и ја имаме со компаниите од нашата држава, придонесе да ова училиште порасне за толку голем број на ученици и мислам дека стручното образование на територијата на Република Северна Македонија е во подем и дека така треба и да продолжи, бидејќи не само во електротехничката струка, туку и во сите други струки на пазарот на трудот е дефицитарен кадарот, односно компаниите не можат да најдат соодветна работна сила, а сето она ние што го работиме, односно произведуваме, да речем, готов кадар за нивно вработување во тие компании. Бидејќи изучуваат во 3 или во 4 години, сето она што е потребно да се спроведува во компаниите со заеднички тимови од инженери кои ги изработуваат наставните планови и програми да бидат укомпонирани за потребите на компаниите. Го работиме тоа, значи практичните вежби и лабораториските во делот на компаниите, а исто така имаме инвестиција, голема инвестиција од 60.000 евра, направивме полигон кој е во училишниот двор за еден од профилите каде што и самите вработени од компаниите и нашите ученици се на терен. Не би должен на крајот, сакам стварно да се заблагодарам, еве што имав неколку минутно обраќање да се запознаете со Средното електротехничко училиште Михајло Пупин и еве еден отворен повик до сите училишта од регионот и сите компании за меѓусебна соработка, за во иднина да го зголемиме за учество и на проекти кои ни донесоа средства за ово училиште денеска изгледа како што изгледа со десетици лаборатории, со десетици кабинети опремени до максимум од делот на електротехничката струка. Се надевам дека Михајло Пупин ќе продолжи да се надградува и да го подигне уште повеќе својот квалитет, да нуди се повеќе добар кадар на пазарот на трудот и да едноставно да биде рамо до рамо со најдобрите европски училишта. Ви благодарам уште еднаш.
Благодарам, директоре Димитар, и нас не беше мило што сакавте да учествувате и што прифативте веднаш што ве поканивме. And I would like to say that from what the principal Dimitar Georgiev said about the school, we knew that the VET education was not really popular in the countries, and now I'm really happy to hear that the interest in VET school is actually rising, and more students are getting interested, and they are enrolling in the VET school. As you mentioned, now we have I don't know, 200 students more, if I'm not mistaken with the numbers. And also when I was visiting the other schools during our monitoring visits for those that were actually awarded, I heard from other principals that in the last couple of years, the interest is rising. It was maybe due to this dual education that was introduced, or maybe it was that there are so many initiatives starting in the countries, and the schools are getting more equipped, and there is exchange between the VET staff and between the students. So we are hoping that this will be actually more intensified in the period to come. As a last speaker to add to the diversity of this panel, we have invited a representative from the Intervet Western Balkans project. Ms. Lucila Morelli is here with us. Thank you, Lucila, for accepting to be part of this conference. And Ms. Morelli is VET project manager and Intervet project manager for Herzegovina and North Macedonia. Welcome. I can see you. Hope everyone else can see you and also hear you. And Ms. Morelli, I would like to ask you if you could please tell us a little bit more about the Intervet project and also exchange programs and the mobility organized both for the students and VET staff. This is really important how this regional cooperation is happening in the region for the VET exactly and for both the students.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I hope that you can hear me. Yes, I think so. As you mentioned, I'm here because as UNICEF, we are the leading partner of Intervet project that actually is a pilot project founded from Europe. And just to give you an overview about who we are and what we do, I just wanted to tell you that UNICEF is a company, actually is a cooperative, which supports the internationalization of education institutions. How we support schools? Actually, by managing projects together with schools, of course, and above all, Erasmus Plus projects. From the beginning until the end of the project. That means that we normally organize mobilities, and now mobilities for, of course, for European Union schools. We worked actually for more than 200 schools in all over Europe. And since Intervet starts, also we start to work together with Western Balkans schools. Actually, since now we worked more or less with more than 120 schools in the 6 Western Balkans countries. With normally, actually, the Intervet is 4. So Intervet project, just to go a little bit back to your questions, how Intervet project creates opportunities for learning mobilities for the schools and for the training center. Actually, the concept is to develop and test mobility schemes in the 6 Western Balkan countries. And to do this, we improve, of course, the competencies of the VET organizations, and the key competencies is also for the participant, actually. And how we do it together with all the countries and all the schools in Western Balkans is by organizing mobilities abroad. And these mobilities are divided in 2 main mobilities. The mobilities related to the students and the mobilities related to the staff and teachers in schools and in med centers in West Balkans. Just to go a little bit deeper and give you some information also about the project, until now, from now until the end of the project, that will be in 2023, we need to organize still other students' mobilities for all the schools in West Balkans countries. And the student mobilities actually are divided in short-term mobilities and long-term mobilities. This difference regards above all the length of the mobilities abroad. So the short terms are related to 1 month, and long-term are for 3-month mobilities abroad for the students. What normally students do abroad in this kind of mobilities? Actually, students go for an internship abroad. So the destinations are different. And for this project, we have as destination for the students that leave Western Balkans to go in other countries in Europe to do an internship abroad. We have Italy, France, Poland, Spain, and Slovenia. This is just for the students' mobility. And then the other main activities are related, as I said, to the teachers and staff for the schools. So we, in this case, the destination are just 3, and the destination related to the staff mobilities and to the teachers for the schools are the Netherlands, Malta, and France. And we still need to organize more or less 70 mobilities for teachers and staff until the end of the project. And just to give you some numbers about the students' mobilities that we need to develop and implement until the end of the project, we need and your schools and the schools in Western Balkans can have the possibilities to go abroad with a long term or the short terms. In that case, we have 320 short term mobilities to implement until the end of the project, and 80 long term mobilities still to implement for the own countries. So that was just to give you some information about this project that is just started last year, and hope to implement, and of course will have an impact to all the schools that already start to implement different kind of projects alone regarding mobilities and internship abroad. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morelli, for being part of this panel and part of this conference, which is the first conference of the RCF. And it was good to hear from different panelists just the experiences, not from the formal and informal education, also from the institution, organization, and from the international projects. And now we can see that there are different initiatives working in the region in the area of VET, like the RCF, like your project, InterVET WB6, that are not actually just working on improvement of the equipment, infrastructure, but also on the student mobility and mobility of staff and the teachers. So we are hoping that the VET situation will hopefully increase and get better really soon in the next couple of years, and then we can really overcome this gap that really exists in the labor market. I now just want to thank to the panelists. Unfortunately, we had really a limited like 5 minutes for each panelist to share their experiences and activities, what they are doing with their organizations. And all together, they are creating opportunities for improving the situation in the field of VET and enhancing the competencies of teachers, and finally increasing the employability opportunities for both teachers and learners in the informal education. I would like to thank you all on my behalf and on behalf of the RCF. Thank you, panelists. And Jelena, back to you. I hope we didn't actually go further from the time that was limited to this panel. And
no, not at all. You were perfect.
Jelena, please.
Thank you to Biljana and to all other colleagues. And as we are getting close to the closure of this conference, we have also anticipated the concluding remarks. And we want to hear concluding remarks from Western Balkans 6 Chamber Investment Forum And we're happy to have with us here today Mrs. Tatiana Ścierowa-Duszkowska, who is the Secretary General of the Chamber Investment Forum, and she has been with us since the start of the project. Tatiana, please, the floor is yours. We would like to hear your reflections about the conference, about the RCF now and its future in the Western Balkan region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jelena. I have the shortest, but maybe the most challenging task, because I have to sum up all the insightful insights and thoughts and ideas that were brought up by all the panelists today during the conference. And it gives me a great pleasure that we've had such wonderful ideas developed throughout the three, let's say 4 different panels throughout the day. We as the Western Balkan 6 Chamber Investment Forum are extremely satisfied to be part of these processes because, as we mentioned in many occasions, we believe that only by combining synergies, that is by working together of all relevant or involved stakeholders in the processes, we can achieve better results. And in the case of the vocational education training, and the issue of securing qualified workforce to support further economic development of the whole Western Balkans region, the cooperation or the exchanges between the policy creators on one hand, the VET institutes on all levels, on the other hand, enjoined and accompanied by the private sector can really bring very good results on field. And I'm happy to state that or to confirm that we have had the Regional Challenge Fund running for almost a year now, and the results are already noticeable on field, because on one hand, as it was mentioned in the brief overview regarding the first call that was completed this year, we had more than 630 companies from the whole region which expressed willingness and concluded memorandum of understanding or expressed willingness to get more actively involved in the processes, and that is really a remarkable number. And what is even more satisfying is the information that was shared right away in the morning or from the introductory remarks, that such involvement or such positive feedback from the direct actors on field, the VET institutes and the companies, has been recognized and confirmed by our partners from the German Federal Ministry on Economic Cooperation and the KfW Bank, by increasing the available funds or granted funds for consortia in the first call. So now we can proudly share the information that a sum of almost 14.3 million euro is or in the process of being granted to select a consortia, which is really an important input into the activities or initiatives on different fields and in the different national economies created towards improving cooperative training programs and VET education as an overall goal. Throughout the day, we heard very insightful ideas or experiences on the importance of sharing those positive spillovers in some of the areas which are crucial for the future economic development of the region, including the processes of green or even blue transformation, the digitalization, which especially in the last year has provided or proved itself to be an inevitable process concerning all different sectors, all different industries, the overall functioning of the systems throughout the Western Balkans countries. And the last panel reflected also on the issue which we as a regional association of chambers of commerce hold very close to our hearts and to our work, and that is the enjoining or creating partnerships in between the six national chambers of the six national economies and companies, including vet institutes coming from all those six economies. So I would wrap up because I know that we are on the line of exceeding the time schedules. On behalf of all involved, that is the Chamber Investment Forum, the KfW Bank, the BMZ who is supporting us, and especially to the fund managing unit who has done an excellent job in coordinating today's conference. We want to thank you all for attending the conference, for following and getting actively involved in the activities of the Regional Challenge Fund. As notified throughout the day, we are looking forward to the official start of the implementation of the 37 granted consortia from the first call. And apart from that, on the launching of the second call. So we are looking forward to many new expressions of interest and potentials for expanding cooperation, especially in the areas which were covered in some of the topic points throughout today's agenda. And we remain at your disposal for any further ideas that might be supported throughout this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tatiana. You did an amazing job with wrapping up all the most important takeaways from this conference and inviting our dear potential applicants to stay tuned. I would just add of us on our social media channels, and you will hear all the details about the upcoming calls. Of course, you can also use the remaining time to browse around our exhibit hall in case you didn't get the time during the breaks. It will be open until the end of the day. And thank you. I think we were almost in time, like 4 minutes. So it's I think tolerable. Thank to all of you. Thank you to the Western Balkans Chamber Investment Forum to all our dear panelists, to KfW, PMZ, and to all the applicants. I think we had almost 200 applicants stay, 200 participants staying until the end, which is really nice. We had numbers from 200 to 300. It also shows the great interest in the RCF, and we will try to keep you updated about our new activities and events. So thank you all for coming and for joining. I wish you a pleasant afternoon and a pleasant winter wherever you are, and keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elena. Bye.
Thank you, panelists and colleagues.